hit start.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we are back on the Free Range Tales. With me, as always, my homie, Adrian Lozano.
How we doing, Jay?
You're doing great, man. Doing really good. And here today with us, I mean, you guys are kind of becoming a fixture of the show. I kind of bummed because this was kind of boys' time.
It was.
And now, like, all of a
It was.
sudden, like, they're here all the time.
What happened?
We got the members of Team Turn 'em Up, the A's, the A-Team. Amy and Anna.
For sure. I like it. I like it.
The problem is when they want to renegotiate the contract and actually want to get paid for this. So that's the real issue here, Jay.
Hey, man, hanging with us is payment enough, right? You
You used to call us the special guests. Now we're not special guests anymore because we are just
So true.
regulars. But I like the A-Team.
Yeah, I think
I'm digging that.
No, it's cool and it's fun. I mean, I think we're here today to talk about third trip to Arizona for a late season archery hunt in January. Great opportunity to do such a cool hunt. And this is our third trip out there. It's kind of fun. We've kind of turned this into like the couples like hunting.
It's kind of fun.
You know?
It's kind of fun.
We did like the things. We did a couple. We did the January hunt. We did another January hunt. Then we did the elk trip, which we recapped. I can't remember what episode. That might be episode 37 or 38. But we did that one. Go check that out. But that was another couples trip. And here we are to talk about another couples hunting trip.
But let's not
it's
have.
going to be a couple's trip all the time.
Yeah. Let's
We're
not
an
have.
A-Team that can't go without us.
I guess you guys just have to keep having babies.
Oh no, we're done. We're done. I'm in a much better spot now.
Well, let's drink to that.
Cheers.
Looks like we all got ranch waters today.
Cheers. Salute.
Cheers. Team, turn them up.
Does that mean like turn them up, like turn the can upside down, like turn them up?
Yeah, it's got a lot of
Straight
different
arm.
reasons, right?
One day we'll get that on video. Straight arm, turn them up.
So Team Turn 'em Up, and I think that there's a reason for that, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of why we dubbed this team that name, and some members contribute more than others when it comes to turning up animals, but I think one of the things about this hunt is there's a lot of preparation that goes into it. Like you mentioned, we've got 2 kids now, so it was kind of like a lot to kind of pack. We needed to arrange a babysitter. We got an Airbnb. We got all those things kind of situated, but those are kind of like a lot of the preparation, right? And
Right.
we're going back to a hunting area we had been to before, and when we left off, the last trip we were out there, we found a spot that we dubbed Valhalla because it was amazing. There was a lot of animals in there, and we were excited to get back in there. And I think from going on the elk trip, we kind of focused on a very specific area and like put our time in at that specific area. I think we had 8 days to hunt, and we literally stayed there for 5 days maybe.
Yeah, I would say 5 days.
And so we kind of learned that was a very good tactic for success because you were starting to get to pattern animals, you were getting to see them more often. And so I think all of us kind of really like tuned into that and kind of saw it to be a beneficial thing. And so now going back to Arizona, to an area that we've been to before, we kind of had some areas that we really wanted to go check out, and just knowing those areas and being able to go there was a big deal.
Yeah, and going back to that great spot that we nicknamed Valhalla, it was on the, just for those that have heard the last time that we were there, it was the last day that you and I had went without the girls. They went to the winery, and so like they hadn't been there, so we were taking them to this spot for the first time on this trip that we had found, and it was our last day, so we couldn't go back. So when we're heading to these spots, I mean, we don't know if the deer are still going to be there this year.
Yeah.
Even though this is our third trip there, this is it. We had skipped the 2022 season, and then we made it to this one. So we don't know if they're there 2 years later.
Right.
We were just telling the girls how amazing this spot was, and they had to believe us. So there was
can be hard to do at times.
That was because it's like we're building this spot up, and we're like, girls, we're not going to go there on day 1, 2, or 3, but we're going to take you to this spot, and it's amazing. And
it was amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of important too. Like we had javelina tags. Amy and I had javelina tags, and then you and I, Adrian, had deer tags, and so like we were kind of like, well, I kind of had a hunch of where javelina might be and kind of some country they might be in. So I'd kind of like been like, okay, I want to go to this area first. I know there's deer there. We had seen deer in that area, but then I had this hunch that there's going to be javelina around. So I said, let's just spend a couple days there, try to figure that spot out, and we'll kind of go from there. And then ironically, that first spot we went to got up to a nice little glassing knob, and we were there and kind of setting up, and it was kind of just, it was big country. There was a lot of big open space to look at, but it was a cool, huge bowl that was just amazing, right? This big valley, and we all got up there, and we all kind of like, okay, like first day vibes, you know, trying to figure out your legs, trying to figure out your gear, and then...
So this is like January 19th. This is in historically, this is when the rut is picking up, firing off. It's hot.
Well, I mean, talk about our date picking, because we purposely went a little bit later, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was a big thing. I mean, traditionally, the Coues deer, people make fun of us for just wanting to chase Coues deer around because it's like such a hard endeavor, and those animals are so tuned in. I've fallen in love with them. I think everybody here has, and it's kind of it's a cool thing because we're like, hey, like we're gonna go chase Coues, and the Coues rut typically happens a little later than the mule deer rut. It's from January 10th to about January 30th traditionally, and so our trip had kind of fallen in the middle of the month, that second and third week of the month, and then this year I was like, you know what, let's push it back, because every trip the rut was firing off when we were leaving, and we were leaving towards the 22nd, approximately. So I said, we start a little bit later, like we're going to be in it the whole time, and so that maybe increase our odds.
That probably helped, yeah.
So anyways, I mean, that was kind of a date selection thing was a big deal, and that's just, again, over time figuring the animals out, kind of taking your observations and applying them to the next time you can go out and make it happen.
What's up, Amy?
I was just going to share that on the way out, Jason and I listened to the podcast from our very first trip.
Yes.
And man, we got a good laugh at ourselves, right? And that's what's cool about this, right? Because it's kind of like in history where you were at with your life, and we had our bows for 3 months before going on our first trip, and we're saying things like, "Oh yeah, I watched YouTube, and we're good," and we just laugh now because we've learned so much. So already you've shared, like, we talk about date selection, we talk about how we're gonna go glass, like we're gonna go to the same place for multiple days, we took learn that. So already in the first, probably before we even start, we are already putting our knowledge and just different things that we've learned over time to use, and I think that was really helpful.
Yeah, kind of like Jason was saying on the trip, he's like, wow, on this trip we're doing a lot less driving, and we're turning up more deer in a sense, and that could be the season, the drought and all that, weather factors that go into it. But again, we don't know if they're going to be there or not. And like the first couple of years we went out, we did a lot of driving and kind of our diligence of like, let's see what kind of luck obviously we can get into. But we were turning up deer and whatnot. But like you said, there was a lot of driving to check these spots off the map. And I think that set us up for success on this trip, because we were definitely in the right places for the deer.
I agree, man.
And Javelina.
Yeah, for sure. And that was kind of funny.
Which was different from the past 2 trips.
I mean, there's, we had Javelina tags. I always kind of like, that one is an opportunity hunt for me. Like, I'm like, I'll just buy the tag, have it in my pocket if I see one. It just gives me another opportunity for a stock, another animal to kind of chase around, and that's kind of what ended up happening. And I think that first day, I'll kind of start there, is we were started glassing, and it was like this big open bowl. It was a spot we hadn't been to before, but looked good on the map, and was just something that we all got up, we all kind of set up, we started kind of doing our own thing, got in our own vibe to trying to start to pick up animals, and like wasn't really seeing any deer, like I wasn't anyway. Right. And I think Anna, like, testament to you, and I'll give you in a second, I'll ask you kind of like your process, but like I think like instantly you were like, oh,
we have a lot to learn.
There's a doe. Like you were like, oh, there's a doe, and I was like looking, like, and it was big, there's big hillsides and mountains that we were looking at, but I was like, you instantly pick them up, and you're like, oh, the's another one. There's another. Like, what? Like, how is she? What's she seeing? Where? Like, where is it?
Well, so, I could tell you her secret. She has AI binos that
tell her where the animals are. They're right there.
It zooms in, it focuses, it adds light to her. It's crazy.
No. I know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like, and I guess to that point, like, like obviously he's joking about the AI binos, but like, what is your process like when you kind of get to a glassing knob? Like, what are you doing, and like, what's your process to kind of do it? Because I always, like, sometimes when I sit down, especially the first day, I'm so ramped up and I'm so excited that I'm moving so quick, and I'm not spending the time to pick apart every aspect of that hillside, every bush. And with the Coues deer, nicknamed the Gray Ghost, I mean, if you see it for a second, then you don't. And if you move too fast, you're not even going to see it because that thing's standing still and it looks just like a bush or it looks just like a rock.
Tell us the truth. Drink some more truth serum.
I think I did mention it to Jason that I mean, when I first get on the glass, I'm not like super slow like I usually am towards the end of the trip, but I do start with like the ridge line because I find it that the deer I find are always usually at the ridge line or like about a quarter down of that ridge line. So I start with the ridge line and usually you can see the silhouettes right away, that's easy. Then I move into like that quarter down and I start looking there, and that's usually when I do find them. I do like a quick scan to see if there is any like big movement that you can see, which is usually what happens, like, oh, they're right there because they're moving.
And you say that, but
oh my god, so many times I'm like, Amy's right there. I put my binos exactly where they are, and
it's
she's
standing
like,
in the middle.
I can't. I don't see it. I'm like, I don't know how to help you.
We'll talk about that location finding the deer in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing when, like, you know, like you said, like, you can have the deer, like, once you kind of develop an eye for it and you see it, like, you can't unsee them. Like, and you start to see more and more and more, but it really takes you settling your eyes down and, like, going through that process, right? And I remember on the trip, I was kind of bummed. I wasn't seeing much, and I was kind of like, oh, dude, like, where are they? And then, like, was kind of asking you, and you said, like, you scan that ridgeline first, and then, like you said, you'll see one just kind of cruising up there, and it's like, you know, early in the morning, like, they're kind of up cruising those ridges, and they're kind of they're feeding, and they're kind of out and about, moving around. And then the other things, when they're kind of rutting, that makes it really easy to see them. Like, you can almost pick them up with your bare eyes because they're running around. But, like, you know, as you're glassing, and then, like, all of a sudden they'll just stop. And it's like, if you're not looking, they just stop. And they'll stand there for, like, 10, 15 minutes. And they don't move.
30,
yeah, it's crazy. They do not move. They don't move a muscle.
Yep.
Like, it's insane. And they're staring. And I started to, like, when I saw them starting to stare, I would kind of look to where they were staring, because I would kind of, like, I could pick them back up. Once I saw them, I could pick them back up. And I would scan to where they were looking, and then, like, sometimes I would turn the buck up, because that's where they were looking. They were like, this guy, dude, like, he's going to come chase me. Like, he's being a little perv right now, and, like, I got my eyes on him. Like, and so, like, during the rut, like, you see, that's when you really see that movement happening. But I know, it's amazing. Like, you, like, almost every spot, every day, throughout the day, you were picking animals up consistently. And, you know, it was awesome.
And that's why you're always getting invited.
That's what I was going to say. That's why I'm here.
The A-team's coming.
I wonder what you guys would do if I wasn't a good glasser. Like, oh, I guess she has to come.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I think, like, throughout the trip, you know, everyone had their day. You know, there was one day that I could not see a deer. Like, everywhere I looked, and I think I saw 50 deer. Like, it was crazy. Like, I could not. Every time I was turning my day, I was like, boom, 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 and just kept seeing them, you know, and it was insane, dude.
That was on day 6.
Yeah.
Of the hunt days, because we had 8 days to hunt. That was on day 6. Because then on day 7, I had the hot eye. I was like, oh, Jay, you got the hot eye, and that was Wednesday. And then Thursday, I was picking them up like crazy. And I was going to say, the flip side to that, like, as soon as you get dialed in and see them, and you're like, oh, I can't miss it, you know, you start to get overconfident. And this is the flip side to that. You start to say, like, okay, I could take my head out of my binos and tell Anna, Jason, or Amy where this deer is, the doe or the buck, and I'll pick them back up. Well, then you go back into your binos, and they are still in the same spot, but you cannot see them. There's something about changing out of your binos and going back in. You almost have to lock back in. I don't know if it's lighting or what. I haven't figured that out. They are ghosts.
They are.
Yeah.
It's, you know, then I'll see an ear flick, a tail flick, or a movement, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it's right in the middle where I left it. So weird, you know.
And a lot of times, you know, when you pick them up, the tail is up, right? So that white is like the flag, it's giving them away. And then they put it down, they're either relaxed or locked in on something, and then you lose it just in that background. And so, you know, until you slow yourself back down, and you'll start to doubt yourself, and you'll want to move your binos. Like, no, I know it's there.
It's still there.
Yeah.
And I guess another thing to that is, obviously the rut really, really helps with movement, and that's important. And with that movement, like you were saying, you would notice the deer, I guess, personality or I guess their defense mechanism. They're staring and locked in, right? But also, if they're moving, I also will take my binos. I'll kind of notice the terrain in front of them, and then I'll go behind them. What are they moving from?
Yeah.
So a tip to glassing, especially the Coues deer, is during the rut, of course, got to set it up. But during the rut, glassing up Coues deer, which is a southwestern whitetail. Mm-hmm. So they have whitetail tendencies. They're just really small. They are walking away from something. I'm always looking behind them, 30, 40, 50 yards. Because if they're walking away from something during the rut, it's likely a buck has been harassing that doe and they are moving away from a buck. So that's also what I'm doing. And then if they stop and lock in, well, then I know maybe they're not getting bumped by a buck, but also they're moving and they pick up a scent of a buck, or they hear a buck walking, because the buck will stare up the hill or down the hill at them as they're walking, and like, oh, here comes a hot mama. Like, let's So then they get perked up and stand up out of their bed, and then you're like, oh my God, a buck was sitting right there the whole time. I didn't see him.
See it,
yeah. So those are some tips during the rut on these Coues deer. It's not always about what's in front of them. It could be what's pushing them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's kind of crazy. I think a lot of the setups that we've picked out, from glassing knob wise, like we are kind of keeping ourselves in like a 300 to 500 yard range, of like the things that we're glassing.
Yeah.
And like a lot of that has to do with like stalks, like these are kind of hilly areas and you have to go down and up, and maybe 500 yards, like as the crow flies.
Sure.
It's like a mile of stalking, so like
yes.
You have to really learn how to navigate, but that's why we're setting up so tight. And it's crazy because 300 yards isn't that far. 500 yards really isn't that far, but then when you're on the binos and you still can't see them, it's crazy. And then like when you see them, you're like, oh, they're, so you start to pick it up. And that first day, I'll kind of touch on that a little bit because it kind of leads into some other stories, is that I was getting kind of frustrated and I started moving myself because I was like, I'm going to check out over here, I'm going to look over there, I'm going to kind of get, because we had kind of a 360 view from the knob we were on, which is why we picked it, so it had a bunch of area around us to look up. And so I started kind of moving, and I moved to this one spot, and you guys kind of all stayed put.
Yeah, because we had eyes on the
Yeah, you guys were on deer. Yeah, you guys were on deer the whole time.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we on that first day, the rut activity seemed very promising. So there was deer moving around. There was multiple does being pushed around by a spike buck and a forky, and that forky. Now that we saw it, he was just trying to get it in. He was fired up, and what that did was that pushed around the deer and whatnot, and we saw two other big
bucks come cruising in,
really good shooters, definitely a 6-pointer and then a bigger body one. So, and I didn't have a spotting scope, hard to say. I'm thinking it was an 8-pointer. It was a 4x4 type thing, maybe with eye guards, don't know, but it was a definitely bigger body, more mature, definitely a couple years older than, well, we started nicknaming him. Well, we had
to name them. There were so many bucks
yeah,
around.
we started to. So we had little Forky McForkison, just a little Forky, and then we start calling the other one Prime Time. And then at one point there was 3 bucks kind of in line on this hill, on this bowl, and it was Top Buck because he was up on top, and he was the bigger one. He kind of had a reddish tail that it was very evident to me that that's who he was. A little bit lighter gray. The other one was darker, Prime Time. That was the at least 6-pointer. He had a darker body, definitely a different look to him. And then there was Forky, and they were at one point up and down, and so it was Top Buck, Prime Time, and Forky. And man, it was wild. You two, I don't want to jump ahead, but you two dropped down this bowl, started to put some stalks on some javelina, and Anna and I stayed up top. She stayed on the deer, and at one point I crept to the edge of this knob, and I was able to see you, the javelina, and still be able to go up to the deer. And man, that
was a good day.
I turned over.
Exciting, very exciting.
Super exciting. I turned over to Anna at one point. I'm like, isn't this so exciting?
And that's the thing about it. We had eyes on the deer, and they were moving around, so it's not like you guys could have gone on a stalk. But that's the thing about having so many people, is that we're locked in on certain deer while you guys can go and do look for more
do other
deer
things,
or
yeah,
do
yeah.
other things, which...
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, it was funny because like you guys were locked in on the deer. I wasn't really seeing anything, and I was getting kind of like frustrated. So I moved, and I just moved over to another spot on the knob and was kind of looking in another direction, and was just kind of like trying to pick other stuff up. And as I was over there, Adrian comes walking over, and he's like, dude, there's a javelina.
It was 32 yards from me that had just started to, like, in the grass right below me, and I'm like, they're right here. Like, what are we? There's.
And so then,
people say they're everywhere. It's true, It's true.
Wild.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Makes me wonder how much we missed on those first 2 trips.
You just don't know what you're looking for.
Right.
Those things are really hard to turn up. They're crazy hard to, especially in the country we're in. We're in kind of a little bit more dense, kind of oak foresty, rolling grass hills. It's pretty hard to pick them up, but. They're right there. So I grab my bow and I start running over there to kind of be like, all right, dude, like if there's one, there's more, whatever. And so like go over there and like we don't pick them up again. We spend a half hour kind of like cruising along this thing looking for them, 45 minutes. And I'm like, kind of like whatever. He took off, like that's it,
Yeah.
And so I come walking back to where I left my binos or my tripod. And then I come walking back and out of the corner of my eye, I see something down below me and it's a javelina standing right there. And I'm like, these 30 yards. And so I'm like telling Amy, like, hey, come here. And it turns out, like, they were bedded probably 15 feet from where I was glassing. And I just probably stirred them up when I started moving around up there. And, like, they were bedded right there. And so the one that left and cruised over to where you guys were kind of got a little spooky and went over there. And then he turned around and came right back.
Right.
And then there was, like, 5 or 6 other javelina in the bed. And then when we were kind of there, because I was trying to get Amy the first shot on that one, I was like, hey, it's 30 yards, it's right there, it's like kind of hard, like, I don't know, it was crazy.
The best thing about that was the wind was perfect for us in that situation.
Yeah.
That's why they didn't blow out before that.
Yeah, so Jason's calling me over, and, I was taking care of some pumping that I needed to do, so I was just like, kind of scrambling all around, I'm like trying to finish, and then like,
2.5-month-old on this trip.
Just
two,
like,
two
oh
and a
my
half
gosh.
month old baby on this trip.
And so then I'm grabbing my bow, and Jason's calling me over, and I stop and I pull up my phone and I take a video. So we have a little video of his head. I mean, he was like locked in on us. So I'm like, well, if you're going to lock in on me, and I know I can't move much, I pull out my phone, I'm like taking this video, and Jason's like looking at me like, what are you doing? Shoot it. I'm like, I can't shoot it the way it's at. I might as well like grab this video. Day one, plenty of time. And so I have this like little video of it walking, and then that leads, I put my phone away, and that leads Jason and I into running around on this knob like 2 chickens with our heads cut off, trying to like figure out which way it's going, who's going to get the best shot, and basically we get spread up, and I kind of go down the knob, and man, Ocotillo, those things are armor. And I realized that stripe on a javelina, it totally is like the arm of an Ocotillo, and they will walk at the base of the Ocotillo, so it's like the Ocotillo kind of comes up and then it starts to sprout out. Well, they can fit right under that base. We cannot, and that's how they can move so quick, and you're like trying to dodge it, and it's spiky and sticking to you, and they're just like doing their thing. And so eventually Jason and I get split up, and I see broadside perfect. I'm like ranging at 30 yards, and I'm looking at it, and there's no way my arrow's gonna make it through. Well, Jason had it at 15 yards, but didn't know where I was at.
I was like kind of waiting because I didn't want to take the shot. I wanted Amy to have the shot, and like it just like I was trying to like I was trying to do
that. Shoot the thing.
We all were like, why?
I was standing there because like I was watching this whole kind of like I'll call it rodeo because it was total rodeo, and we had a couple rodeos on this trip. Like,
and we're the clowns, by the way.
But like watching these javelina run around, and like they're kind of like trying to figure out what to do, and they're kind of spooked, but they weren't really bailing away. Like, they were staying within 30 yards, but they were kind of like trying to figure out what was going on. And so I'm watching them, and I can see this little notch that was in the little knob at the top. And I was closer to the top, and I'm like, oh, they're going right for that notch. Like that's gonna be their escape route. And so I run up and I get above the notch on a rock, and I'm just right above it. And so I'm watching, and all of a sudden I see 3 javelina, and they're coming right to the notch. And I'm just watching them come right to like exactly what I thought they were gonna do. They come right there, and there was like 2 little ones and then kind of a medium-sized one. And I'm like waiting, and I'm looking for Amy. I'm like, Amy, like trying to get her attention because I know she's close, but I don't know where she is. And so I'm like trying to get her attention. I'm like, dude, where is she? Like, what is happening? It's like gonna happen right now.
You're trying to be quiet. It's so loud. And,
it is loud, yeah.
It's not like you can easily just like float up there. And I told you, like, all the ocotillo and the bushes are in your way. And eventually I just, like, watched it walk away. And just...
Yeah, and then I kind of saw it came and stopped at 15 yards. It was kind of like just munching on a bush, standing in front of me. And I'm looking around like, do I shoot it? Do I not shoot it? And I was like, after, the elk trip and other things that have happened, I was kind of like, I can't just shoot this thing. And, like, maybe this is our only opportunity. I'm like, they're not going to go far. Like, let's just kind of see what happens.
Right.
And so they kind of eventually kind of, like, looks at me and goes, oh, crap. Like, and then bails off the backside. But then they circled around. They, like, went around and came back to the same side, met back up with the rest of the group, and then ran down the hill all the way down to the valley. And I watched them the whole time, and then had my glass on them. And then saw where they went onto the other side of the valley, kind of where the deer were. Like, the deer were up higher, but they were kind of on the bottom side of the hill. And so I just kind of said, okay, they're there. And so I said, all right, well, now let's let them settle back down. I kind of have an idea of where they are, and let's drop down there. And then we ended up dropping down there. And then our whole day, I mean, it was like literally, we spent 5-6 hours chasing these damn things around. Just kind of like, and you guys were watching this rut fest happen up on the hill. I mean, there was so much happening that first day. And, we ended up, getting a stock in, relocating them, getting pretty close. Never really had a good shot. And then they kind of got spooked and bailed.
And to paint a picture of what these ocotillos are, ocotillo, think of an octopus with their tentacles coming out. So these cactus aren't like the big circle or oval shape. It's a cactus that has these arms.
I will never think of an ocotillo the same way. That is such a good description.
Thank you. I thought of it myself on this trip.
Yeah, that's how he described it to me. I'm like, oh yeah, I see.
Because Anna's like, what's an ocotillo look like? Think of an octopus. So, and they have these long spikes on them that are about 1 inch to 2 inches long, and they're everywhere on each branch. And there's not much of a base to them. So you could see through these, cactus, but it's not conducive to send an arrow through. There is just strong thorns and branches that are attached to this.
These are like daggers. Those thorns on there are daggers.
So from up top, when I'm down on this edge of this kind of cliff face, I see you guys and I'm like, why aren't they just weaving through those light patches of cactus? Like, they're right there, guys, 80 yards, just keep walking. And I see Amy kind of like side hilling and then drop down and then side hilling and then she stops and I'm like, thank God for radios, by the way.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that a little bit in the future too. But
thank God. But I'm like, Amy, they're like,
keep going, keep going. I'm like,
keep going down. And she's not moving. She's like looking and then looking to the side. I'm like, she doesn't know how to stalk anything. So anyways, no, all jokes aside, I mean, she gets back on the radio. She's like, I know it looks like I can walk through this, but I cannot walk through this stuff. It gets stuck. And I could see her like pulling stuff off of her sleeves. And what it is like branches getting stuck on her and whatnot. And there's these other vine ones that almost look like a raspberry vine with no leaves type.
Yeah,
it's
all kinds of stuff out there.
Everything wants to poke you. Everything's sharp. Everything sticks to you, dude.
Yeah.
Every single thing out there.
And so stalking really helps when it's windy and really helps when the ground is wet. Because it's you're not stepping on potato chips anymore. Yeah. And the wind just really messes up your crunching under your feet. If you're not, taking off your boots or putting something on the boots that make it soft step. So that makes it difficult, and they were already spooked, but not spooked enough to run away and blow out. And you guys were, oh my God, I thought it was going to happen on day one.
Yeah, it was pretty close. Even on that second go around, we were really close, and it just didn't work. They kind of were too on. They were kind of too tuned into what was going on, and they just kind of like ended up spooking.
Like I said, they were wary of the situation, but they weren't like blowing out spooked.
Yeah. They were about 40, 50 yards at all times. They just couldn't. We just couldn't kind of close the distance to get a shot.
Honestly, if that was like a last chance opportunity, maybe one of us would have tried to stop them. We did eventually blow a call, which blew out the whole valley. But I was like, oh, I've never seen this before. I saw all the deer that you guys were watching.
I felt bad after you were like, well, that just blew everything out. But I told Jason on the radio, like, try your call, because these things were jamming out already of this valley, and I was like, try your call, because we've seen in videos that they will turn around and come barreling right back in on these calls, but it did not work. They were already pre-spooked, I think, enough to where they were like, oh hell no,
Well, I don't think one strategy will work every time.
Correct.
Right?
Also
so
true.
it just, there were some that were on the move, but there were a few in the back that weren't. And so, I had like a 50-yard shot. Jason had a 45-yard shot, and he was like kind of looking at me before he blew the call. And I was like, no, don't do that yet. But I was never going to shoot past Jason.
Yeah.
So it was just, and Jason wanted me to have the first shot. And so at the end of the day, the right thing for us to do was not to take the shot.
Right.
It was exciting. It was day one. Of course, you just want to punch that tag because for me, I hadn't, shot anything. So I was really just like, I've had the tag a few times. I haven't gotten anything.
And you wanted redemption on Javelina.
Oh, yes.
Since the Sam days.
Yeah. That was fresh in my mind from listening to that first podcast.
Which I think we ran into a Sam relative. Well, we'll get into that.
Yeah. So there are all kinds of things getting on our way in Arizona. But long story short, we really decided not to take the shot, and then we walked all the way back. I mean, that was a long walk back.
Yeah, it was kind of, like when you have a failed stock, it's kind of the walk of shame. You come back kind of just thinking about the what ifs, coulda, woulda, shouldas, and you just kind of come back and got to reset. It was the first day, so it was kind of like, dude, like, that might have been our only chance, but, that was exciting nonetheless, and it was super cool. And I think the cool part was that you guys were watching a bunch of rutting deer and had eyes on deer, and then Adrian, you came up with a play for the next day, so we're like, hey, let's go back there. Kind of came up with a play set up to kind of get in tight to where those deer were. We're going to put the girls up on the glassing knob. We were going to get in tight, kind of like try to like just ambush them basically, be in the zone and see, like, because we saw you guys had
based off the wind,
patterned them, kind of seeing what they had done.
Based off the wind and where they were, and the only kind of approach to this was to get to the side of them, kind of same elevation, and play the wind and play their pattern that we saw the day before.
And we didn't blow the big deer out.
No,
the call was nothing.
No, they kind of were like, what was that? Like looking around, kind of like, what the heck?
We left the deer there undisturbed.
Yeah, and then, so we were like, hey, let's go back there. We kind of set up and did the whole thing. The only rub in that situation is that some weather moved in. And the weather, that first day, the weather was like sunny and 75. It was
beautiful.
Perfect. Like what you expect Arizona to be in the wintertime. And the next day was what you not expect it to be. It was cold, wet, raining, and just kind of miserable day. But we were like, hey, like we got rain gear, we got all the gear, we talked about it, we all geared up, and we're like, let's just get out there and start glassing, and
It was, well, yeah.
That was the second day?
Yeah, that was day 2.
Yeah. We went back and we hiked up the first day knob, and they drove around and went. Around. Yeah, it was more of like a white tail, Eastern tactic where you try to go and wait for them to cross the path, and that's when we were sitting up there together, like.
Oh, that's when we were just watching them.
Yeah. And that's the thing. There was there wasn't anything happening. That same spot where you guys saw all that deer.
Yeah, we were
right there. I saw 2 does. I think you guys saw a couple does, but
I actually picked up the Forky on that day.
Right.
That same Forky, it must have been, and he was hot in the trot. But I mean, I was looking at a face like 2 faces away from you, which is hundreds of yards, and really not accessible, and no way to tell you where he was really, right? So that's the other thing, was where I might be picking him up on this knob, you guys are over on that side of the valley, but in order to tell you guys where he was at, I was like, yeah, right, that was never gonna happen.
And that would have been like, it would have had to gone down that buck came to us, because we were set up already in this tactic of they have to walk in front of us. And they would have if we were there a day earlier.
And interesting enough, where you were, Adrian, I was laughing because I was literally watching you put your hands in your warmer. Like, you weren't even, like, glassing. And then when I talked to you after the day was over, you were like, oh, yeah, I couldn't see anything where I was at. But from my vantage, you could see the whole valley.
Right.
So that just shows you, like, when you're glassing from one spot, and even though it looks good at another spot, it might be totally shut down.
Yeah, and I was like on this like kind of.
She was so like, look at Adrian.
Nothing. Wait, just expect us to tell him when the deer's coming to him, like lazy hunter. I was like, he's a truck hunter at this point.
Yeah, that's road hunting to another level. Just gonna sit there and wait, dude.
It was my favorite day of hunting. Let's just say that. I was actually nice and propped up and warm and cozy. But no, my view, I was kind of on this part of the bowl where it started to roll away into another bowl and section of mountains, and I was just like right there to where I can see this saddle, and I couldn't see anything on that face that was on my left, nothing. And so I was in a good spot to the saddle. for range. You know, I needed to be within range.
And that was the play, right?
That was the play.
Yeah. You were kind of like anticipating something crossing that saddle, which
right.
we had seen happen, and was something that, you know, even before the trip, that was like a tactic that I thought was going to be something that worked. And then by you guys having visual on deer the whole day before,
right,
and seeing what they were doing, you were like, hey, this is an opportunity. So we kind of went over there and set up.
Totally.
Just got totally shut down, man. It just was the weather dependent, man. I mean, like they were pinned down by the weather, and unfortunately, that kind of played out for a few days. I mean, there was a lot of weather throughout this trip, and it's just kind of a part of it. You can't plan for that. Like, it happens, and we kind of picked dates, and we were like, we're going, and we ended up getting a bunch of weather that kind of moved through. Ironically, previously when we had weather, that kind of turned the rut up and turned it on.
Right.
We kind of had seen it, so we were like all excited that, hey, we're gonna get some rain, we're gonna get some weather. But it was the
wasn't
exact opposite. No.
I was not excited about the rain.
Had the exact opposite effect, right? Like it was kind of crazy because it just nothing really kind of came about that day, and so we just kind of got shut down. And I think, you know, midday we were just kind of pulled the plug on the program there, and just like, hey, it's not going to happen. Like let's back out. And then, you know, we're like, hey, let's just go to another spot. Like we're kind of in this area. We'd been to this other spot before, kind of on like the other side of the mountain range, but we're like, hey, let's just start on this side, and you can hike and kind of glass into bowls and like let's see what happens.
You're like, hey, let's just drive around to the spot before, and we're driving out, and that sounds like a great idea, but you know,
Dirt
20,
roads,
30 minutes of driving.
Oh, yeah.
And Adrian's like, well, hey, we could just stop here and we could just hike ourselves up.
Yeah.
And, you know, Anna and I were like, yeah, sure. That's no big deal. Yeah, sure. We'll just go ahead and hike again. And
it was 750 yards as the crow flies.
Yeah.
So it's like,
not that far.
It's half a mile.
we could do this. Guys,
Sure.
guys, I go on stalks like this all the time. Come on.
Hey, I had a baby 10 weeks ago. It's fine. What's another half mile? I'm fine.
Yeah, so that was a mistake.
No.
It was great.
It
felt like a mistake at the time, especially when.
Well, maybe you should listen to me.
Yeah,
wait a second.
Listen to your wife.
The trail had a fork in it, and I took the path less traveled by.
Well, it looked very traveled enough.
Thank you, Amy.
For me to follow you down it.
Thank you, Amy.
The funniest part about this whole thing was that, like, you know, we were kind of all hiking up, and like I see Anna kind of make a left.
First, you
and
start
I'm like
with a
looking,
death march.
I'm looking at we just kind of death march all the way up this steep section and whatever. So we get up there and we're kind of just trudging our way. It's kind of like kind of seems like a trail, and we're just following it, and then it kind of turns into not a trail, and you just got to kind of side hill and kind of country, like cut through some bushes and stuff. And I'm kind of looking at Anna, and then I'm looking at Adrian, I'm looking at Amy, and Anna's like kind of starts like going to the left a little bit, and I'm looking at Adrian. Adrian's like, hey, follow me, and I'm like,
I gave you the thumbs up.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
like, we're good over here. This
and I'm like, and I just was like, I'm following Anna, dude. And I'm like, what does it say when I followed Anna and then Amy followed you, dude? And then you guys got lost, dude. And I was like, dude, what's going on?
We didn't get lost. It just took us a little longer.
In the words or actions of your firstborn.
Yeah.
Man, there was one part Adrian and I got to. It was so good for a while, and then it was not good at all. And I knew that there's no way we were going to catch you guys. And Adrian's like, and I go, it's through that bush. Like, literally through the bush. Under the tree, through the bush. And he's like, what? And I'm like, follow me. And I just put my head down, and I just, like...
True story.
Pushed through this, like, open patch. Because you can see some opening after that.
Yeah.
That's also why I love to wear a soft shell. Because when everything is trying to grab you...
Bang through that bush.
Yeah, I just bang through it. And, you know, if you have your, beautiful merino on, it's just snag city. So I just put my head down, and I just pushed this tree and this bush came together, and then we made it through. And
we made it through.
I forced Adrian to follow me.
At that point that we made it through, and we're like in a nice opening, we're like trying to find Amy and Jason on the radio, and they're like, yeah, we're already glassing. Where the hell are you guys?
I was like, and it was like we stopped and we got to this like kind of the area we were trying to get to, and
which we
just kind of like looking back, like where'd they go? I'm like, I don't know, dude. Whatever, dude. They'll figure it out.
Oh my god!
Like, just get your binos out, like whatever, dude.
Can you send us a
pin? Yeah, can you drop a pin for us so we can find it?
Some breadcrumbs.
We had a great walk.
I still stand by my response.
But
we made it eventually.
Yeah, we ended up getting there. Everyone kind of got set up, and but we unfortunately kind of found the same scenario, right? Like there was just everything was pinned down. There was nothing happening. The weather was still kind of breaking up in the afternoon, and was kind of partly cloudy, but still a little wind. Kind of clouds would come in, it would kind of get dark and cold, and it would kind of get sunny, and so we were just kind of hanging there. I ended up turning up a coyote. At first I thought it was a mountain lion.
That's
it just kind of was like this crazy thing, and I was like looking at it, then I saw its face, and I was like, oh, it's a coyote, and it just was chilling, dude, like just having a nap. And
it turned out the coyote was the highlight of that glassing spot because we weren't seeing anything else moving. Yeah. So after a while, 30, 40 minutes of, you're like, dude, this coyote's huge. It's just chilling. I walked up to your spot and I was like, okay, where the fuck is this coyote, dude? I'm tired of trying. I'm tired of trying to.
Just having snacks and everyone's kind of just chilling, but.
I went for pump session number 2 after this treacherous hike, and I came back, and I literally was eating lunch, and I was like, hey, have you seen anything? You're like, a coyote. And Adrian heard us talking about the coyote, so he came over, and you're like, okay, see that, second hill, and there's a tree stump.
Which is a skill in itself to try to explain someone with words where to look through binos.
Amy, you're really good at that.
Well, thank you, because I suck at finding the deer. But once I found them, I will lead anybody to that spot. If you and
I were one person, would be the perfect.
Gosh, yes, that's why we don't have to come. You find them, I eventually find them, and then I can tell the boys exactly where they are.
With your powers combined.
You
create the ultimate
we're a team,
hunter.
Right? That's we're a team.
But, talk about a crazy turn of events, right? So just nothing's happening. I see this coyote. You come over to kind of like, I kind of explain. You're like, okay, I got it. I know where it is now. So you're going back to your tripod to kind of like get set on it. And just kind of observe it.
I'm almost back to my tripod.
And I'm like talking to Amy, and just the kind of angle that she's like kind of above me and to the left, and I'm like looking to her, and I'm like talking to her, and then I like look over her shoulder, and I see like a rock moving.
No, and let me quote Jason, what the fuck is that? I mean, when somebody looks over your shoulder and says that, you're immediately like, huh,
like you're being hunted.
Yeah,
But I mean, I just happened
and then he finally says, it's a javelina. I was like, oh, thank God it's a javelina.
It's right after
not a mountain lion or a jaguar.
It's right after he explained to me where a coyote is that mistakenly was a mountain lion in your eyes. And then he says, what the fuck is that?
Instant terror.
Just like kind of just on this little roll over right next to us.
100 yards?
Yeah, 100, 150 yards away. Yeah. Like I see this black little thing moving, and then I see it like kind of turn toward us and yawn, and I was like, oh, it's a javelina, dude. So I'm like, oh fuck, like do we go? Should we go? And I'm like, do I go? Do you want to come? Like what are we gonna do?
So he's like, it's a javelina, should I go? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. And granted, I'm eating lunch, like I have nothing out, I don't have a tripod out, I don't have anything, and I'm like, where is it? He's like, see that bush, and I'm like, okay, this bush, to the point where I actually took a picture. And I said, point to me in the picture. And then he did. And so then that's where I knew to look. And I said, yeah, grab your stuff and go. I had no idea to that point, and we could not see the javelina. Adrian comes back over to me. I pull out the same picture. I'm all, this bush. He's like, got the bush. Goes back to his binos. And then when you had started your walk up there, then the single javelina popped up. And, I could finally see it.
Yeah. And so I just kind of cruised up there, just stalked in. The wind was again really, really good again.
Yeah.
And just cruise up there, come up with a little kind of area to get up to. And I get up there, and then now you guys have eyes on me. You guys now have eyes on the javelina. So you're kind of able to guide me in a little bit with the radios, which is kind of another big thing in Arizona. They allow radios. We use them. Like sometimes it's super beneficial. Sometimes it's kind of a detriment when you can't, like it's hard to explain. You're talking about trying to explain where things are. It's kind of hard because when you are on a stalk, you can only see 30, 40 yards max, and the bushes are way different.
Yep, they look different from where you were looking at, because now you're coming at it at a different angle, and now they look completely different.
And so everything overlaps. I think you talked about this before. Everything overlaps in some weird way. And so all the shooting lanes, all the vision lanes are all blocked. Mm-hmm. And so it's like really, really hard. And so you only have like 30 yards. I kind of found it to be about 30 yards that you can actually see. And then you're kind of just creeping around in there and trying to weave your way through there without making too much noise. And so I get up there. You guys are like, oh, it's like the bushes. Because you were trying to explain to me where the bush was. And you're like, oh, no, go around. And there was like a fallen tree. And you're like, go around the fallen tree. I was kind of going above it because I was like, I'm going to get up above it and then swing back down on like the top of the ridgeline to come back down to it. And so I'm like kind of like standing there, and I start to creep around this tree, and all of a sudden the javelina comes busting out of the tree, like out of the fallen tree, just comes busting out, and I'm like, oh shit, like, and then it just kind of turned into chaos, a total rodeo, like just javelina everywhere. There was so many javelina there, and I was like, oh my god, just like watching it, kind of just like watching it all happen. And some some good ones kind of start to run up above me. And so I start ranging them, and they're kind of moving, and they're not stopping. And I'm ranging them, and they end up dropping off. And then I then see another one kind of stop broadside, and I'm just like, well, this is it. And I really didn't kind of I wasn't going to be
selective.
Yeah, I just was like, hey, I'm just going to kind of put one down. I just missed. I didn't take the shot at 15 yards the day before, and I'm not going to miss it.
Right.
So I just kind of was like, all right, I'm just going to kind of this is the one. You know, it's giving me a perfect broadside shot. I was just standing out in the open, just not even paying attention to what was going on. And I'm like, this is the one.
And I think when the herd is big enough, right, some get spooked and kind of start to scurry.
Yeah.
And they typically come back. So you start to learn, some might scurry, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to alert the other javelina that, something's wrong, especially when the pack is big enough, right? And so... So we sent Jason, and Jason, I do want to give you credit because you did say, you radioed again, Aim, are you sure? And I was like, I was a mess. I didn't have a bow in my hand. I was like, no, you do your thing. So then Adrian turns around because I was, farther away, maybe 20, 30 yards.
Yeah.
No, probably 20 yards farther away. And he turns to me and he says, grab your bow, there's some running down. So I couldn't see them from where I was sitting, but he's like, they're coming right for us. So I'm just envisioning, I'm going to stand up with my bow and here you are. And so I take my eyes off of you for a second. I'm grabbing my bow. You were in the rodeo 150 yards away. And
do I shoot it?
When I stand up, I tell you, Jason, there's one, to your left. And Adrian turns to me and goes, he's already shot one. And I'm like, what? And he's like, he already shot one. And I was like, oh my God. And so that time of grabbing my bow, you had already put one down. Again, another benefit of having, friends that are helping you out. And so then the ones that you said were good ones, I'm watching go, and they were probably two or three big boars. And I'm like, big. Oh man, that's the one I want to shoot, right? And I'm and they're smart. They're big for a reason. You know, they're old for a reason.
Yeah.
And so they're taking off, and I'm ranging them, and they're 60 yards from me, but they're not stopping. And I'm like, you're on the radio telling me hey, come over. So I'm like, I'm just gonna have to go to where Jason's at. He says there's more over there, even though I want to chase out. I wanted to sprint after those big ones, so I kind of changed my path and end up hiking up to where you're at.
There is a video of that. I thought she was gonna shoot them, so I was recording her, and
I wanted to.
You know what's
they were big.
Also really cool is we didn't talk about taking videos and whatnot, and you kind of took it upon yourself, Anna, to record anything that was action. So good on you for that, because
I'm just trying to be like Amy.
Yeah. Well,
Amy's...
start with I forgot the camera.
Another thing that the A-team brings to the table, man. The camera work for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, even to the last day, when I did, things happened really fast on the last day.
It is hard to remember to do that, and it has to become part of your practice of. Having, where I put my phone, I know exactly where it's at, right? It has a spot on my body that I carry around so I can film.
And that's why these other production and channels and stuff, they have a dedicated cameraman.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's his job.
You should be getting paid for this.
Well, I forgot the camera.
I told you.
Our cameraman forgot the camera.
I told you. They're trying to renegotiate their contract.
So the very first year, I forgot the diaper bag for our son, or the second year. And this year, I forgot the camera bag.
Yeah,
when we need another one.
When we renegotiate the deals, it's going to be make sure to remember the camera. That's a part of your job.
No payment if you don't have the camera. Yeah, and so it was really cool. So, Jason's like, hey, come out here. And so he has eyes. And so I get out, close to where Jason's at. I'm not going to walk right to him. I get out there close. And at this point, he's kind of pointing. Thank you. And so I finally see this javelina that he has eyes on. And again, javelina are meant to survive, and that it's hiding behind a tree. And it's a kind of a little one. And I played that same, dialogue in my head that Jason did, that that one's not big enough. And I stopped myself, and I'm like, hey, don't be greedy.
Don't be picky.
I've never harvested an animal before, and just, be in the moment and take what you can get. But that one did not want to be shot. and it decided to stay.
That wasn't the one.
That was not the one.
It's pretty amazing, their senses, you know, just like going to that, like, oops, ow.
Sorry.
Their senses are amazing if they they don't have the best eyesight, right? So they have a great sense of smell, and they can hear things, but sound is not necessarily a deal breaker for stalking them, because they're moving around, they're feeding or doing their thing, and so they make noise. So if you're in their zone of where they're just feeding or bedding, it's okay to make a couple of crunching noises with your feet. You just don't want to make them too fast or too loud. So the sound can be okay, but also you have to play the wind, because your smell will blow them out.
Yep.
Their eyesight, not the best. Again, they can see, and they will see you if you're close enough.
That was crazy, right? The whole eyesight. You were like, you stood still.
I will say the advice we got right before we left was, if they see you, just pause. So I found myself like mid-stride, like, and and it's looking at me and trying to figure it out, but it also wants to eat. And again, because the wind was perfect,
Yep.
it just went back to what it was doing. That's kind of what that little one was doing around the base of the tree, just running around. Now, again, I'm like frozen there, staring at it. I got a range on it finally. It was like 30 yards. And then you guys, in my ear via walkie was like, hey, there's some more coming back. So that crazy blow up that happened when Jason shot, now some are coming back, and I could see, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them walking, one mama with a baby. I was like, I cannot shoot that one. That's like the hard, it's weird. It's like this, yeah. I'm still having this internal battle, like I want to do this, but it was the same thing with the elk. Like,
you still
I'm
want to show respect.
Right? I'm like, like, oh my gosh, like
you still
want to, can't see that.
You want to do things right,
Right, and so, a group of them walked back up. It was a bush that a few bushes, little manzanitas that were out there, and they walked back, and then I could tell they were relaxing. I could see their shadows like past the bush, and so I just ranged the bush, right? Like, you have to have the range. And the bush was, again, just 30 yards in a slightly different direction, and so I, had my arrow knocked, and it was funny. I just remember, like, okay, just kind of reset, and I got my release, and I, put it, and I was just waiting, and sure enough, I was like, oh, it's going to step out. And so I drew back, and I was like, here it goes.
It's so cool to be watching it through binos, and you just are like, you're not there, but you're there this close in your binos, and you're just like, oh my God, I'll never forget you making sure your front hand on your bow was like in the perfect position. You took an extra 2 seconds to just like, okay, that's where my hand loves to be on this bow. And then like you knocked your D loop with your release, and you just pull back, and I'm like, and we're gonna watch the javelina. And I go over to the javelina, and there's 4 of them there, and I'm just staring at them, and the one that was closest to you, so the one on the left out of the 4, just jumped and then ran kind of down and towards you, but then stopped. And I'm like, oh my God, did she miss it?
Yeah.
And so I get in the radio and I say, if you missed it, take another shot, knock another arrow.
Right.
Because there was what?
And what Amy heard is, you missed it.
You missed it.
Take another shot.
And it was weird. So I, again, I kind of had myself situated. I was right where I wanted to go. I know the yardage was right. I pulled back, and I just had it, and it stepped out. And remember, there was a little herd. And so, again, just being ethical, I, personally didn't want to shoot the mom and the baby. So, like, that had to get out of the way. And then I had to wait to have an open shot, right? Because I'm assuming my arrow's going to go through the javelina. So if there's another one behind it, that's not the right shot to take. So finally, the shot was just there, and, you're aiming right behind that white line, and I pulled through, and I felt like it was perfect. But again, never shooting animal before, I saw the arrow again, because I'm only 30 yards away. I might not have the fastest bow, but that arrow is there fast. And as it turned, I saw the arrow again. It's like I saw it go in, and then I saw it again. It was crazy, and it made me like second guess myself, and it takes off, and so does the little herd that's around it, and it just does this like kind of C half circle, boom, and I think I see the bush it goes into and just stops. So then you radio, if you miss it, but I hear you missed it, shoot again, and I'm thinking, I didn't miss it. There's no way I missed that shot.
That's where the radios can be a little conflicting.
Like the differences of it, you know.
Pros and cons.
You know, so, what you're experiencing on the ground right there is different than what you're maybe seeing from a couple hundred yards away. Right?
Which we are investing in better radios. I've already done some research.
Oh, good. We'll talk about that after.
Yes.
And then Amy's like, I didn't. What did you say? Like,
I didn't fucking miss it.
Yeah. Then eventually I'm like, I didn't miss it. Like, and so I look at Jason. Jason looks at me because he's, you know, it was
kind of obscured by a bush. I actually just posted on Instagram the video that I took because I was standing probably 10 feet from Amy, and you know, just in line with her.
Right.
I could see the whole thing, and I recorded them, and I just posted it on Instagram.
And you could see the arrow fly.
Yeah, I tried to slow the video down. Like I tried to do.
It's cool. I mean, you could see it in a frame like the arrow. Yeah, I'm like, oh damn.
And so it runs around, and then.
It went 15 yards.
Yeah, we did range it out, went 15 yards, and I took one step, and I just saw the something on the ground, and it kind of just did one little flop, and I was like,
so
I got it.
Yeah, so from my angle, I see him standing by the bush and then disappear, and I'm like, oh my god, maybe she didn't hit it.
Yeah.
So then you're like, no, he's down, and then more rodeo happened.
Yeah. I mean, I just like, you know, it's funny.
Do we want to talk about it?
Testament to Amy. I mean, no, it's a part of the process. And I mean, testament to Amy. I think you know, you hit an amazing shot. You know, like it was the perfect shot. You know, it was 30 yards, perfect broadside. You nailed the shot. It was an amazing shot.
Right on the white collar.
Right behind it.
Merciful shot. Right, like it was the best shot you could have ever taken. And you know, the shot I took, I ended up like. Because it was kind of, there was a lot of happening, and I took a shot, it was uphill, and I ended up shooting kind of like center body, and it was kind of quartered to me, and so it ended up going a little back, and then hitting back and hitting the back leg, and I thought it was down, because it went down, and then some other javelina kind of came to check it out to kind of see what was happening, and I thought it was done, and then after you had your shot,
we kind of let it settle.
Let it settle down. Everything was kind of settled down. You got your shot, saw it was down, and so I went to go look for where I had seen mine lay down, and it was still there, but it got up. And so it was my first shot was a kill shot. It would have died. It just wasn't dead yet. And so instead of kind of letting it suffer, decided to take another shot. That shot was awful. I kind of was like, I just rushed it. It was kind of like a little panicky.
You haven't been in that position before, so
yeah, and you know, you just didn't want to see this thing. I didn't want to see it run away. I didn't want to lose it. I just kind of was like, you know, just one of those things. And in hindsight, I should have never taken that shot, which is a lesson. You know, you just kind of learn. And you know, I shouldn't have taken that shot. So then I had to take a third shot. But then the third shot was perfect. I mean, it was done in like 2 seconds. The thing was done. But you know, it just was one of those things. But I kind of mangled it a little bit.
Amy gets on the radio after the third shot, and she's like, with the amount of blood I saw come out of the exit, that thing is dead. Yeah. And it died right there.
And I think like even like the broadheads, you know, like I think the broadheads we were using, you were using a fixed blade like
Magnus Stinger,
which is a fixed blade, 2-blade, like kind of traditional arrowhead looking blade, and amazing. That thing was offering. That was like exactly what guys down at Arrow Shop Bruce told us was like this is what you want. This is what you're going to need for the draw weight. And you know the speed you're shooting, this is exactly what you want.
Absolutely,
and it was amazing. I mean, the thing was perfect.
It had the right blade angle. It has a pretty steep blade angle. 2-blade, not single bevel, double bevel. Cut on contact, amazing. Like very sharp out of the box. We touched them up and honed them up to make them even sharper and cleaner edges, and absolutely perfect for your setup.
I was able to recover the arrow pretty easily, and that's the thing about, you know, javelinas. There's not a lot of blood, even though I was able to find some. I mean, I saw it, but I still wanted to do, like, again, some more to learn, right? Like,
the blood trail.
The blood, you know, so I found my arrow, and I had made these arrows up, you know, give it up to props to the Boat and Arrow Shop. They let me pick my own vein color, and so I picked this Army
OD green.
Yeah, OD green for one of the knowing that'd be impossible to find. And then this other, you know, more like blaze orange for the other two. Yeah. And so I was able, thankfully the orange was up, and I was able to recover it. And then, we did kind of a little blood trail, but, I wanted those to be like my hunting arrows. And so it did all work out, but, we followed it around, and when I saw mine, the shot was great, and the, intestines were out, and it was just done.
Yeah, your veins had pulled the intestines out of the back, because it was probably quartering 2, and, yeah, the amazing and awesome part was pigs move a lot, and obviously it's a peccary. I know it's not a pig. I get it, but it looks and acts just like a pig, so we're calling it that. They twitch and move at the blink of an eye. So it had, like, when you do enter in a pig with an arrow, the body's already starting to move. So therefore, you're not going to get a good blood trail because the hole is opening and closing so much when they're running that a lot of that blood is just internal, and also their hair and hide soaks up a lot of that blood. So you would need it to run for a long time with a gaping triangle hold to actually see a blood trail.
Right, and actually I took a picture of mine, and you can see just that it was actually running down the side of it. It had never like dripped off.
Right. You had some blood trail for yours.
Yeah, mine was
well, like
I shot. That was kind of what I was bringing up. That was kind of what I was bringing up the broadheads for. Is that I was using G5 Mega Meats, which is like a 2-inch blade, 3-blade. I mean, kind of overkill for the job that it was brought on to do.
For that animal.
Yeah, it just was, and it kind of did. The first shot I took, like, there was an immense amount of blood, and I don't want to get down that path, but anyways, it just whatever. I mean, we got the job done. I was kind of stoked, and we just, like, it ended up working out. And the crazy thing to me was, like, it went from 0 to 100, which was testament to the trip, and that's kind of a little foreshadowing to, like, the whole trip itself. But it went from 0 to 100, and it was just like, man, we got it done.
We're still only on day 2 right now.
We'll kind of speed up a little bit. But I think, like, I can't thank you guys enough, and the A team again, like Anna especially. You're kind of just there. You don't have a tag, like, and you're there.
It's just fun.
But
no,
like,
you're not just kind of there. You're really there.
No, you're really there. But like, what I'm kind of getting to is, like, now we've got 2 animals down. It's late in the afternoon. It's about to get dark. And we have to clean these things up. And so, like, we then, like, everybody does the same thing. Everyone rolled their sleeves up, got the knives out, and started going to town on these things.
Mm-hmm. The girls, Anna came to my side and was like, let's do this. And, my Javelina is bigger.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, let's throw something. I was just going to say, let's throw something out on the table, and let's just talk about the heaviness of...
Oh, it was a great one. It was a big one.
You shot a boar, and you shot a sow, and holy crap, that thing was every bit of 45 pounds, if not more. I'm being on the cautious side.
It was nice.
Yeah, we ended up getting the skulls. We're getting those taxidermy. We'll post a picture when we get them back. It'll be a little bit of time, but we'll get them back. And I mean, the skulls.
Well, I do have one skin we could post.
But I mean, it was great. And in hindsight, I could have been more selective, but I just didn't want to get greedy.
But also, it's our first. It's our first one.
It's like experience for you as being the first one to go into it. And being like, oh, even if you shot yours, and then they still, like, were scared but still around. So I think we didn't know that. We thought they were all gonna, like,
right.
Yeah,
I would have put money on that they were gone.
And no, they're there.
Yeah,
they're staying there.
You just didn't know what was gonna happen, and so it was good. I said, Amy, let me go take the first shot. I was trying to get her the first shot, so that she gets the bigger one. So
well,
it's all right.
And to be honest with you, like, once I kind of got that out of my head about the one with the tree, I was not sizing that one up. Mm-hmm. I was taking the one that was. The shot was available.
That wasn't the mama.
That wasn't the mama, right? But it happened to be a big old.
Yeah, it was big and old, and I mean, even when we took it to the taxidermist for the skull, he was like, "Oh, this one's an old one, dude. Like, this one's a good one."
And you could tell. What's really cool is with the teeth.
Yeah, that's exactly what he was kind of looking.
We were looking at Jason's, and the front, bottom row flat teeth. They had, like, razor serrations on the front flap ones, and then. The back molars
were still spiky.
As well. And then we looked at Amy's. And the front were sawed down and weathered down, and the back molars were like molars.
But interesting enough, they talk about Javelina and the teeth that cross that continue to sharpen themselves.
Yeah.
Those were fully touching and just
super
razor sharp.
Razor.
Jason's we're not touching. So if you think about it, it needs those really sharp-edged other teeth to then
make up the difference.
But when they get bigger, those big chompers
take over.
Really work.
Yeah.
An amazing animal, and they're kind of a bow hunter's dream. I mean,
they smell good.
No. They're called stink pigs for a reason. We found out why. They definitely smell like skunks. We were very, very careful processing them, and everyone did a great job. I was ultra paranoid. I think all of us were ultra paranoid about cleaning them. Did an amazing job. We found a processor to take it to. Decided to turn it into chorizo. We're actually going to have some tonight, so we'll kind of post something about that. You guys have already had it.
Yeah,
it's so good.
We've eaten 2 packs already.
It's so good. We
haven't had the chance yet. Today's our first day to have it, so you guys have already had it.
So we had it just like regular chorizo with like eggs, and then we made like a breakfast taco. Oh my gosh, dude! It is the best. It is the best chorizo we've ever had.
Yeah, and I mean everyone was kind of like poo-pooing on them a little bit because they're the stink pigs and no one really likes them, but I think we've taken the game care and the care of our meat is ultra important. We do it when we do fishing stuff.
Absolutely.
Like
that set us up.
Meat. Yeah, and so we really take care of it, and I think we all were ultra careful. We took care of it. We did a good job. We got it right to a processor. Processor kind of highly recommended, from like the locals down there, and did a good job. I'm excited to try it. I'm glad.
I want to give a quick. Oh, did you want to say something?
Ahead.
I wanted to just give a quick shout out to YouTube and the information that's on there for free, because like TWO Timmy Winslow, he's down in Arizona. Timmy Winslow Outfitters. He put out videos. I think it was like 2-3 years ago. About how to skin javelina, and he is specifically the one that gave me the confidence to not be so ultra paranoid around the scent gland and to skin it like normal. Just don't puncture the skin right there.
Yeah.
That was like the biggest thing. He hangs it up from a tree. We did it on the ground, but that gave me the confidence, even though we've never skinned this type of animal before, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, be careful! Don't let your knife touch this gland or puncture it." It gave me the confidence to do that. And also, like the food processor down there, the wild game processor, came from the Mountain Project guy who shouted out. But also, you did some research, and it solidified.
It was really funny.
Your research.
To your point, we'll watch YouTube videos and stuff, and there's like kind of a community. It's a small little niche little thing, and so we were going into an area, Mountain Project, watch their videos all the time. They do great stuff.
Yeah.
Did one down in that area that we were in, and had posted a video. I had kind of done some research to kind of find if we get lucky, I want to have a processor lined up. This one was the one that I was like really thinking about.
What's the name of that processor?
Wild Game Processing in Tucson.
Perfect. I mean, we might as well give him a plug because
he was awesome. He was great.
He's not asking for a plug, by the way. This is just something from our experience and our research.
It was funny because I brought up the Mountain Project video, and he was like, "Oh, really? They put it on there?"
He's like, "I didn't even know. I didn't even know they did that. That's cool."
They were super cool. It was kind of an interesting experience dropping off, but it was it worked out fine, and they were great. And the Mountain Project kind of gave them a shout out too, so it kind of worked out. When those guys said it, I was like, "All right, that's like the guy to go to," and glad that the meat has been delicious. And we kind of ended up, so kind of fast forward the next day, Amy and I take off early in the morning to go drop off at the processor. We do that. We had a bunch more weather that day. It was dumping rain, and so you guys kind of took the morning off. We charged it and dropped off the javelina at the processor. Came back. I think we ended up going out in the afternoon, and that was the day where we were like all wearing rain gear, trying to glass in the rain. It was just like ridiculous. It was so silly, but we were putting time. We're out there, like we got to do it.
Yep. Then the next day, the girls went to a winery. Not the last day.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh yeah, that's right. Amy took a day off.
I stayed home with the boys. Gave my parents a break, and my parents and Anna went wine tasting.
And I did ask them. I was like, "Wait, do you guys want to go on a date?"
You did. That's so sweet of you.
Am I like? Do you want me to go with you guys?
Third wheeling, baby. Let's go.
And your dad was like, "No, come, definitely come."
I've been this old lady.
Yeah, they've been dating for 45 years. They're like, "No, we're good. Like, come on, let's go."
Longer than that, but we let you guys out of the house. You guys still went out, which
we know. It was another day
where
there was like another thunderstorm day. Like
we don't guarantee a kill. We guarantee stories.
That was what I told Mike that every day. Amy's dad. I told him that every single day we left in the morning. It was early. Everyone's kind of drinking coffee. We're getting ready to get out. It's dark out. And I said, Mike, I can't guarantee an animal today, but I can guarantee a story.
Which needs to be our slogan underneath.
Yeah, we're gonna claim that one. I gotta trademark that one.
We guarantee stories.
But so Adrian and I went out, like kind of went to a spot that was close by, knew we could get into even with the weather and stuff. Get out there, decide kind of like there's nothing happening, animals are pinned down again. Like let's go kind of just check another spot and go see what happens.
We got all-terrain tires.
Yeah, we're good. We ended up getting freaking stuck in the mud and kind of total rodeo, and finally get out. I was laughing hysterically. Like, I posted a video of us kind of getting out on Instagram.
We did it.
That was freaking classic.
But I'll call you back in 3 minutes. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah. I was like, give us 3 minutes. We're at a crucial point right now.
Timing's everything. Timing's everything. Amy called like as we were stuck and trying to figure out how to get out. She called and I'm like, let me get back to you. Like, let me figure this out here. So ended up, getting it out. But it was even a concern. I think we talked about it before. It was like, being prepared and luckily like having a group of people that can keep their head straight and kind of work it out. And we ended up kind of figuring it out, dude. Like, I was kind of in the driver's seat, kind of getting stuck, and like, oh no, dude, like you jumped in the driver's seat and kind of pinned it a little bit and got us out. I was pushing. I literally was sliding all over. Rocks were kicking up at me, and
it was in the pump, in the gas. It was in the pump.
So
pump and let go. Get on, get off.
Like,
get on, get off.
Who knows what had happened? That was kind of like mid-afternoon, getting late.
You guys had a moment together.
Yeah, it was. We were having a blast, and we were just like, let's get out there, and it was an amazing story and so fun. We're gonna remember that forever.
It was like the whole trip, like shit gets real really quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that it was just like perfectly aligned with the shit gets real quick.
Yeah, and I'll kind of we spent a lot of time, but I'll kind of fast forward a little bit.
Let's fast forward.
Like, weather kind of clears out, and then after we spent a few days kind of in weather and not really turning up very many animals, finally we get a break in the weather. We go out and we go back to that spot Valhalla, which we had gone to a couple days before and kind of like started to kind of spend some time there.
Yep.
We've kind of done what we needed to do at the other spot, got the Javelina, weren't seeing too many deer, couldn't get a play on deer at the other spot, so we changed locations, went to the Valhalla, which was kind of the plan the whole time.
Yep.
And kind of end up bumping into deer right away. Start glassing,
like
and
right
all
away,
of
like
us
on our
hike in,
together.
On our hike up to our glassing knob, we bumped deer, which was very, very congruent to where we left them, because when Jason and I went alone up that same hill
2 years before, right?
2 years before, we bumped deer at the same spot, and it was like 5 doe that time. This one was like we confirmed 4, and so it was like, hey, we left them exactly 2 years ago in the same spot. So
yeah, it was cool, and that spot was great. I mean, I think all of us turned up a lot of deer every day we were there. Such a cool location, just kind of multiple valleys, multiple areas to kind of turn up and do. I know, it's amazing. I know. I just like you kind of like it's kind of funny. You're like, do you really want to share it? But I don't want to share it. Like, no, but anyways, it's hard to find. It's but it's there, and you just got to kind of find those spots, and those places are special, man.
And
Tommy found those spots.
Tommy.
Whoa, Tommy. We went there. 2 years ago when you guys went, there was no difference in your tag if it was a Coues or a mule deer.
Correct.
And fast forward, it's become a very popular hunt. And now mule deer were actually closed.
Yeah, that area down there is definitely more of a Coues deer location. There are mule deer there, but Arizona changed all the regulations, so the over-the-counter tag is no longer over-the-counter for residents. You got to kind of first come, first serve, and there's only a special allotment. I think it's approximately 2,800 tags.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to get one, but then they now...
You got your tag on the day your son was born.
My son was being born. Like, he's being born. Like, Amy's pushing, and I'm like... Bye. Like, the Arizona's like website crashed. I was freaking out. You and I were texting. I'm literally in the delivery room.
Yes.
Like on my phone.
Yes.
Amy's in labor, and I'm like, fuck, dude, I gotta get this thing done. Dude, like, we gotta get this one.
Wait. He thinks that if he goes past my left shoulder, I am not going to notice. If I just stand
right behind her, she won't know. She won't know.
On the elk hunt, I was 8 months pregnant. And fast forward, I know the deadline's coming up, and he's like, who are you texting? Adrian. Tags. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, we were literally in the labor. Like, she's in labor, dude.
It was full on.
And then
it is pushing time, and he is over my left shoulder getting a tag.
And like the website crashes. Arizona's website crashes.
We are still happily married. However.
Well, it's even funnier because one of the nurses, after the fact, one of the nurses is looking at me and she goes, do you fish and hunt? And I'm like, yeah.
She walks in and says, do you hunt?
And I just was like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, I can tell. I'm like, oh, really? I'm that obvious? I'm that obvious? And I'm like, dude, like, and then like, you know, just like whatever. She ended up being
my
super
antlers
cool.
or
Evidently
what?
her husband hunts, and so she could pick that type out, but...
It was funny, and like, so it ended up like, it
real
ended up
story,
working
yes.
out, dude.
Real story. Good. Thank you for bringing that up.
I just want to say, like, that started this whole
dude.
last hour.
Oh, for sure, dude. It was,
success.
I mean, luckily, you know, like I said, Arizona's website crashed. We both were texting back and forth about it. Finally get a tag, like lock that up, and then like 30 seconds later, a baby boy comes popping out.
Yeah. Literally. So last hour up to the last hour. You got your tag.
So you know, but we're
we're dedicated to doing this.
It's
and
amazing.
to your boys, you're very dedicated to your boys.
But you know, when we were out there,
so Austin's good luck.
Yeah, he is a good luck. He's gonna be a wild boy, man.
Good data tag.
But so
good
while we were out there, we ended up turning up some really, really good mule deer, like really, really good mule deer. But the unfortunate part is that Arizona has changed the rules, and so they put an allocation of the number of tags or animals that can be taken per zone, and that area has
per species, right?
Yeah, per species. So either whitetail, Coues deer, or mule deer.
Yeah.
And so like in the area we're in, there's not a lot of mule deer, so it's a very low number. That number was filled. Like basically the day we arrived, it got filled.
Yeah.
And so then there's still plenty of Coues deer tags. Like they kind of let it go because they're trying to manage the population. You could send a lot of people down there. I'm not recommending the hunt because it sucks. It's awful. It sucks down there. So
it's
don't go.
Terrible.
But you know, there's a lot of tags available for Coues deer because they're really, really hard to hunt.
Yeah.
And so
but so we did turn up some amazing mule deer, and in fact,
Beautiful.
I have his video of the herd thanks to our friend Tommy. Tommy's a dog, by the way.
There was some bird
hunters in there moving animals around, and we thought we had this place all to ourselves. It was this amazing place. We turned up so many deer in there. We got on a couple stalks. Mm-hmm. We were kind of like, this is going to be amazing. Yeah, like this is where it's going to happen. And then all of a sudden,
I go on a stalk.
You were on a stalk.
Out there on a stalk, and 200 yards, 250 away, I hear, Tommy! Whoa, Tommy! Tommy! Good boy, Tommy! But before the good boy, Tommy, I'm already texting like, there's some guy yelling for Tommy over here.
And I was thinking at the same time, like, am I hallucinating? Like, am I hearing somebody yell something? Like, what are they yelling?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Jason, do you hear that? And he tells me, yeah, Adrian texts, they're yelling for Tommy.
So the dog's name is Tommy, and Sam's uncle, we dubbed Sam's uncle.
We crossed Sam's name off our list because the Javelina tags had been punched, and now we had Tommy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, bird hunters, we bird hunt, we love it, you know, and it was tough because this guy came just tromping through everywhere, and we had deer, and the deer just bust out of there. They all busted out of that.
So I text back, well, here I come, because you guys couldn't hear me on my radio. When you're whispering in these microphones, it's really tough for it to pick you up. So when I'm on a stalk, I'm listening. I'm going to text back, but I'm listening on the radio, and that's about it. It just is not worth the headache of me of like, did they hear that? And then, you know, Amy's like, all I heard was, I'm like, oh, dang it. Yep. So it's just not worth me talking when I'm on a stalk. So I just texted back, I'm heading back. Sounds good is the response, and we had a good laugh and whatnot. Then the next day was Thursday, right?
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, we ended up going back in that same spot.
Yeah, it's like, what do we do?
I was kind of blown out. I was like, man, like this guy totally blew it out. You know, and like the deer got moved around, and you know they're really fickle deer, dude. Like,
and we're approaching the end of our trip.
Yeah, we're kind of getting down to the end of our trip.
Last 2 days.
I will say the only benefit is that when Tommy came through, they all ran to the same spot, which was down into the drainage, right? Because we're high up, and they all ran down. I'm like, well, guys, like, we still know that they ran where they ran. Like, the only good part is that we glassed the herd.
They didn't blow out. They blew in.
Right.
So
and we ended up kind of sitting back down, and it took a little longer to kind of turn them up. And the day before was gangbusters. You saw so many deer. Mm-hmm. This day was a little bit more kind of, you had to pick it apart and really pay attention. And we started turning animals up. And then you went on a stalk, and I think kind of one of the things that I want to talk to you about is going on these stalks and like picking your route, going out there, and then it'll kind of lead into the radio conversation and kind of things that happen with that, because there was kind of two things that ended up occurring on this day that were pretty exciting. But like, when you're going on stock, I talk about it all the time with these, especially with Coues deer, is you bed them down and you're like, okay, it's go time. Like, I got to go and move. But they're so, like, they want to get a hot doe, and so they're so fixated on these
rut
does,
takes over,
and that they'll sit down for 30 seconds and they stand up and go, and you're like, dang it, I just lost them.
Or they can sit down for 30 minutes. So it's,
and you never know. True. They could be there. They could totally sit down and be there all day.
True.
Like, so you don't know. You have eyes on them, so you just like, as soon as I bed them down, I'm like grabbing my stuff, like, all right, you got eyes on them. I'm gonna go. And so then, we did that, and I think you went on a stalk on that one.
I swung outside of the wind, of course, and stayed on this ridge line that kind of goes up and down on these knobs. And I got to this one knob and I kind of went down on the face a little bit, and I'm looking at this saddle, and it just wasn't happening. They weren't moving my way like what was expected, and I ended up just chilling there, no water, no food.
Second day in the road, you took no water, no food.
Yeah, it was the second time I went on a stalk, and the first day that I did go on a stalk, I was like, I'm not doing that again. I'm taking snacks, I'm taking water with me, and then the next day,
the excitement takes over.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm gonna go, and I'm just like, grab my bow, and I'm gone. So I forgot all that stuff, that pain I went through the next day or the day before. So I'm on this spot, and I'm sitting down. Luckily, there's this little rock that's kind of a bench, and I'm sitting there, and I'm glassing what I can. I think 2 hours go by, and I don't see a damn thing. And then I'm like radioing and texting, and then I'm just like, well, actually, I just saw a doe that came across, not on my knob, but on the other knob right across from the saddle, and she just walks across and starts to going down and bumps another doe. I thought it was a spike because of the way this doe was acting. It was almost like following her, and with her nose down, it was really odd. But anyways, they ended up freezing and doing their thing, and then still nothing was happening. That doe stood there for 30 minutes, frozen. So I'm like, this is like pointless. I'm so thirsty. I'm so hungry. Let's do this. I'm going back. So I let you guys know. I text you guys. I'm gonna head back. I am on the last knob before coming up to you guys, and then it was like, Adrian, if you're still there, stay there.
Amy found the spike.
Well, this is what's kind of funny.
Forky
this is
spike.
what's
in
funny.
that 2 hours that you were doing your thing on one side of the ridge, Jason had pursued something else.
We talked about with Tommy coming in, the dog kind of coming in and pushing all the deer down into the bottom. I decided, well, the wind is good enough that I can drop down. I'm going to drop down to the bottom. I know there's deer down there. You're up high on the ridge. I'm going to drop down into the bottom. So I drop down to the bottom. I creep my way all the way down there to get all the way to the bottom. And I'm like, the play for me was like, I'm just going to sit here, see if I can turn something up down here. I know there's deer down here, but I'm going to wait and see if maybe I see one moving and I get one to cross my path and I get lucky, and that's
absolutely
what's gonna happen, right? So I was just like, I'm going to drop down there. I'm just glass from down at the bottom. You don't have the advantage, but I was like, I'm just going to put myself in the spot that I know that they are, and I knew that there was deer in there, but they just were locked down. They just were not there, and I just sat down. I was down there for about 2 hours. Same thing. I'm getting the text that you're sending, and you're like, hey, I'm out of here. Like, I'm going to pull out, whatever. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'll back out to you. We'll meet up and reconvene and kind of see what's up. So I start to cruise back up this ridge line all the way down from the bottom of the valley. There's kind of a pinch point down there, and I thought it was a good spot to sit at, and it was, but I just kind of didn't turn anything up. So I start to cruise back up. By the time I get back up from the exact spot that I left, Forky,
small Forky
stands up and starts to cruise, and Amy picks it up.
Well,
I totally bumped it. I totally bumped it out of its bed.
Totally.
I had picked it up on its way down. Then you had gone down there, and we had said, like, hey, at least we know one had gone to that direction.
Yep.
You went, and so as soon as, and I didn't know you were coming back, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, that's the same deer. And it's way to my right is where Jason's at, and you're all the way to my left, and you hear me on the radio when I was trying to get a hold of Jason, like, hey, there's one down there.
Yeah.
And you said, is it close by me? And I tell you, no, so far away from you.
I'm like, whoa.
And so
I think still coming back.
He's on his way, whatever. And so all of a sudden I'm like, making some calls on the radio, and then Jason appears to my right, and I'm like, oh, hey, you didn't hear me talking about this deer? And you're like, no, I couldn't hear you. And I start watching it, and it's going left, and I'm like, man, it's going left at a good pace, and it's not necessarily chasing a doe, but it's hot.
It's moving.
It's out cruising, dude.
And then I finally make the radio call, Adrian, if you're up there, like, just stay up there.
Yeah.
And, we had named one knob the crooked knob, and so I'm like, hey, on the crooked knob face, that's where it's headed. So I was trying to give you some sort of, like,
reference.
idea. I had no idea where you were.
Right.
Jason finally comes and sits down, and then it's like the games begin.
Yeah, because then we got eyes on the buck from you and Anna, and then we got Jason that found me and said, okay, he gets in the radio. No, I know where Adrian's at. Adrian, you need to go. And I'll never forget that text. I still have, obviously. It just said, go, ! And I know, after hunting with Jason for a long time, I know what that means. That means your sound is not going to hit this buck. Your sight, you're out of sight.
Yep.
Go. Get to that knob or get to that saddle. Get there. So I started to kick it. I literally am looking back up this knob that I came from, here we go. So I just, boom, 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 boom. Here I go.
I saw Adrian coming down, and as I heard you guys saying no, stay there. He's like, oh, he just goes right back up.
Yeah, gone.
Like a little goat.
And it was cool because after I sent you that text, because I kind of knew I could see where this buck was going, and he was moving at a clip, dude. He was moving so fast, and I could tell where he was going. And then it was cool because I could I would watch the deer, then watch you, watch the deer, watch you, and it was like this convergence. I could see this convergence happening, and then the buck kind of stalled up. There were some cows, and he kind of got spooky around him, and he kind of ducked around him, and then he ended up coming back up, and he just started kind of cruising, and then you got to exactly where I thought he was gonna go. I'm like, dude, this is gonna happen right now, and then all of a sudden,
about 100 yards away or so.
He then decides to drop down and kind of side hill underneath where you were.
Yeah.
And then it was we kind of start to tell you hey, he's headed towards this saddle.
Go back
to where you just came. All that walking you just did, now go back. And so then now we see the deer and we can see you in the same same
it was
field of view.
so
It was
exciting. We knew you couldn't see the deer, but finally, because Jason was basically spending his time watching you, I was watching the deer and then, giving kind of coordinates and clues to Jason so he could go back to the deer and give you better information.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I literally was in glass watching this deer for, I'm going to say, an hour.
Yeah, I would say so.
Tracking this guy, and then all of a sudden, it comes together, and I see you, and I see the deer. I'm like, oh my God. Again, then I finally had the it's going to happen moment. And I went back to all those things about, knowing, again, from just my Javelina stock, the person giving the direction might not be able to see things the way you're going to see them.
Right.
And also, being the stalker, I might not respond, but the best thing I can do is continue to give you information from my view. And if you don't take my guidance, it's because it doesn't work for you. And so then as the sender of messages, I'm going to then maybe try something new.
So crucial.
And they're all unwritten rules. They're all just knowing us as friends and as hunting partners. And nobody's going to be offended if you're not walking right when I'm telling you to walk right. It must mean that it doesn't work for you.
Correct.
So I'm going to continue to try to help you in a different way, because literally for an hour I was giving you a play-by-play.
Yep. And you were constantly the one talking the most in my ear on the radio. And things changed when you said, you see that big green tree bush in front of you. And I'm just I'm shaking my head.
And I'm glassing you, so I know you're
and I'm
confirming.
Yes, I'm even giving thumbs up sometimes. And then you're the other two down to the right of you, he never came out of those. Mm-hmm. So I ranged that bush, and then I look over into the saddle, which I have a beautiful path into the saddle. And I just ranged the open patch in the saddle, and it was 43. So I'm okay, I'm in bow range of the saddle, and Amy's he hasn't crossed that saddle, but he was heading that way, but he didn't cross. So I lost sight of him. He's got to be there still, Adrian. So then I'm okay, and I'm now peeking around the bush, and I'm I don't see any movement. And then all of a sudden I look down to the right to the saddle, and that deer is completely broadside facing me.
Staring right at
me. And in that moment, he just sends out the front leg stomp. Just boom. And I'm like, fuck, I'm busted. I'm so busted. So I slowly grab my release, my handheld, and I clip it on my D-loop, and I point my bow at him, and I slowly start to pull back my bow, and it just takes off. And it takes off not away from the saddle, but it takes off like side hilling back towards you guys. So then I get back on the radio as I start running. I'm like, he's headed back your way, I'm gonna push him. So I'm pushing this deer, I'm running. This deer is way gone already. Jason had already grabbed his bow and jammed down.
It was cool because I saw in the binos, I saw you about to draw back and was like, dude, this is going to happen. It's going to be, I was so excited, so pumped. All of us, I think all of us were watching it. We were so excited. And then like, you're kind of like, oh, it's over. And then all of a sudden we see the deer running towards us. I just like threw my binos out of the way, and grabbed my bow, and just started sprinting to where I knew this deer was going. There was a saddle.
Have to cross.
He was going to cross across this saddle. I knew where he was going, and so I sprint. And so it was a race to could I get there fast enough.
Yeah.
And I end up sprinting there. You're still on the radio, like, he's coming. They're like, I can still see him. Like, I'm just running as fast as I can to get there. I get to that little like area, and then like just wait. And then I ended up ranging him at 127 yards. He was standing, and then like we kind of met, and we both kind of stopped at the same time. I stopped and was like kind of trying to duck behind a bush, and he stopped and was just standing there staring at me, but he had me pinned. Mm-hmm. And then kind of like he ended up kind of not coming all the way down to the saddle. I had the saddle at probably 45 yards. And then he kind of side hilled it and kind of went above. And I think I had him at 80 is where like he ended up crossing.
Oh, but, so exciting.
It was such a cool thing. And, it was like, dude, that was crazy. Like,
I had him at 40.
The second to last day, you had an opportunity, dude. It was crazy,
so
man.
And I think this speaks to the fact that, some people might disagree with the radios. But no matter the two-way communication that you can have, really when you're bow hunting, there are so many things that are in the animal's favor, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
That it can only help you so much. And yes, some might argue like, oh, you would have never even had that half a chance.
Correct.
If you didn't have a radio. You're right. But at the end of the story, the deer wins. The deer totally wins, and evaded two of you, and we were happy to see it go.
Yeah. Yeah. And in hindsight, if I would have stayed on the rock I originally was before moving to go back and then, crossing it back over, if I would have stayed on that face, I would have had a clear shot at it and would have seen it side hilling and coming to me. But here's the thing, like, radios helped me get back into that position. Mm-hmm. But it also made me anxious enough, like, nothing's happening. Hey, guys, should I head back? Like, it also hurt me in that situation, too. But I don't see it as a failed stock.
No.
I don't see any stock that we go on as a failed stock, whether it's you, Amy, Anna, myself. It is never, in my mind, has registered, not a single one of them has registered as a failed stock. Because we learned something from each and every one of those stocks. So I don't see it that way. I was so pumped that I got that freaking close again to a mystical gray ghost.
And it's funny because the next morning when we got up, both you and I came, met in the kitchen for coffee, and I was like, I was thinking about that, and the only thing that could have made that better was this, and that's what I was thinking about too. So again, lessons learned, and it sticks with us. And unfortunately, I couldn't go with you guys the next day.
Yeah, you had to kind of bail out of town, and you and the kids and parents kind of pushed off.
Yep.
Unexpectedly and unfortunately, but it was the right decision. You made the right decision.
Sometimes, life is important, and I needed to go take care of something that came up, and so I went home with the kids and my parents, and the three of you guys went out.
It was our last day.
I had to make a decision. If I missed something at home, how was I going to feel? If I was going to miss a deer, how was I going to feel? And both were going to make me feel awful, but I knew I had to go home, and so I left, and you guys went out.
And you didn't miss anything, by the way.
No.
The whole day you didn't miss anything.
No, I know, and I'm so happy that you guys didn't tell the next story.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you weren't gonna come, I was just worried about how am I gonna tell them where the deer are?
Stuck with the boys. Anna was stuck with the boys. Let's go.
Anna,
direct them like
she
Amy
already
just did the day before. Like,
she already gave in.
She
She's
did.
like, "Hey guys, they're by the fucking tree."
Remember when I tried to tell you, like, you remember, do you see that tree? They're right under that tree. And she's like,
which tree? There's a million
I'm
trees
like,
out here.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not good. Like,
They already grid locked it and said it's in grid 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They already knew where it was.
Yeah, I mean, you
I was
know,
definitely
you're
worried.
losing a pair of eyes, you're losing the teammate, you know, the kids, you know, all the
Camera
things that
woman.
go along, and all the things that go along with that, right? And so, you know, but we were like, hey, you know, the last day, if you go back to the elk hunt, the last day turned out to be an amazing day. Got lucky on that last day.
So you kept the vibe high on the last day.
we were pumped, man, and like, but we were kind of like, I was kind of like, what do we do? Like, because we had trampled around that whole zone that we were in, and that was kind of our play. Like, we were still like, well, should we go back there? I'm like, yeah. I was kind of like, I was hesitant to go back in there, but I was like, you know, let's go back, let's try it out. We'd seen a lot of deer in there, so let's go back in there, and we went back in and. First thing again, as we're hiking in,
Bump
we
the
end up
muleys,
bunch of muleys, some coos as well.
with coos deer. That's
And,
pretty cool to see them together.
You know, I mean,
And
first
they
thing in the
were
morning.
also pretty close.
Yeah.
We bumped them at maybe 50 yards, you know, and
Yeah.
they kind of bumped out to 100. And the mule deer, the difference between mule deer and coos deer was very evident.
Yeah.
The coos deer did not stop running for 500 yards. Like, they just kept going.
Yep.
The mule deer kind of stopped at like 60 and like
They
turned
just
around and were
stared
like,
at us.
oh, what are you guys doing? Look at that. What's that? You know, like, it was
Welcome back, friends.
yeah, the difference was palpable, you know, it was
Yeah.
crazy. You could see the
Muleys
difference
knew the
between them.
tags were filled. You
Yeah.
can't touch me. And you're like, here I am, you know, like at least a 6
Yeah.
point beast.
It makes me want to
for
hunt a
sure.
muley because they seem so much easier.
Yeah, it's a different
Jesus.
level. So we end up back at the same glassing knob. We're sitting there. We spend the majority of the day and saw maybe 2 does that were like 800 yards away that kind of dipped over a ridge and they
Yeah.
were gone, you know, and everything was just kind of locked down. You know, maybe the bucks were kind of locked down with a hot doe. I don't know what was going on, but we just were not turning up.
Yeah.
anything.
There was
we did
no
not
movement.
did not see a buck. Did not see very many does.
Counting
When
the
Anna can't turn them up, you know. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's time to go.
pack it in. Counting the first 3 does that we bumped, we only saw 2 more. So it was like 5 doe, nothing else moving. Was still able to turn up the mule deer behind us
Right.
because they didn't leave. It was crazy. They're easy. Just kidding.
Yeah,
just
take
kidding.
that back. Take
Just
that
I'll say
kidding.
that next year.
Just kidding.
Yeah, take that back.
So we didn't like disrupt the area. We knew that the deer still had to be in the area, but we're just seeing 2 doe and then nothing for the next 2
yeah,
3
we saw.
hours.
I mean, we literally were there for about 6 hours and didn't
Yeah.
see anything.
Yeah.
You know, I walked up to Adrian and, you know, was kind of getting frustrated and kind of like upset. It's the last day, nothing's coming together. And, you know, when you're looking to get a play, like you need some time to kind of do it. Yeah, I was stomping around up on that thing, like moving, trying to find something. And so I walked up to Adrian and I said, all right, dude, like it's whatever. It was like 2 o'clock at
It's
this
like,
point.
yeah,
And
decision time.
I said, like, all right, dude, like we can either stay here for the rest of the day and hope something happens, or we can leave and try to make some luck happen somewhere else.
Yeah.
And like make it happen, dude.
It was actually, I think, not that it matters, but it was like closer to like 12:30 because
Yeah.
it was like, hey, this is that decision
Yeah,
hour
yeah,
that
yeah.
we need to make. If we're gonna move, it's gonna take time, and we need to reset up.
Yeah.
So it was around that.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
we
you're
started
right,
to
you're right.
bounce at like 1, and it was like, hey, we'll get to the next spot by 2.
Yeah.
And we threw a Hail Mary. We went to a spot that we've been to in the past, but also it was a spot we hadn't been to on this trip.
Yeah.
And it was literally a last afternoon hunt Hail Mary. And we get to this spot, and it takes some time to drive back there on this.
Well, wasn't it the spot that you guys were going
We were
to?
trying to get there and we got
But
stuck in the
then
mud.
The rain and the mud
Yeah,
stopped
yeah.
you guys.
I didn't want to give away our spot. You just gave it away. They're gonna look at the muddy
Every
roads.
time we give it away.
They're gonna see our tracks
I
on our
did.
Yeah, they're gonna
Instagram.
find it. But yeah,
No,
you're exactly right. That was the spot we
I
were
know.
trying to get back into just to kind of check
There
out.
was a calling for that spot.
And,
Yeah.
It's funny because when I was sitting there glassing for hours, and I'm still happy just glassing, even though I don't see anything because it's nice. I remember being like, I wonder if like going back to that spot because it's probably dry now. But I mean, like I said, I don't ever mention my
Mention it. Mention it.
You should bring it up.
I
You-
always-
you have an opinion. And
I
it's
told you, I
appreciated.
just feel like I don't
You have a
know
voice
enough,
too,
but
Anna.
yeah.
You have a voice too.
And it carries weight.
No matter what Adrian says, we care about what you say.
No matter how much my voice drowns her volume
We're
out.
still listening for it.
Yeah, so you know,
so you guys make the big move.
We kind of made the move, and you know, it was kind of like we were starting to hike into the spot. We had been there, and we saw probably one of the biggest deer we've ever seen back in there, one of the biggest bucks we'd ever seen. We'd been there, you know, in the years past, and you know, kind of cruising out there, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, dude, like, what are we doing, man? Like, we blew it, dude. Dang it! And I'm getting frustrated because the clock's ticking, right? Like the end of the day is coming. Last day.
You frustrated?
Yeah, and I was getting pissed.
I mean, only when there's no game.
But you know, we kind of get up to the spot and, you know, kind of set up. And,
it's a good
you know,
spot.
it was great. It was an amazing spot. Like, it's amazing. It's an
views.
amazing spot. Like, it has so much opportunity. It's another great glassing knob where you get a 360 view. There's plenty to look at, and it's great country, right? It's in a great spot. And so we're looking at one area that was kind of like where we had seen those other deer. And then, you know, Adrian, within about 30 seconds, turns up a doe up on the ridge line, but it's like 1,000 yards away. Easily. It was so far away. And so we start glassing, and then we start to turn up does where we had seen them in the past, right? Where we saw them before. And we're like, oh, okay, there's deer here. And then we're just like watching these does and kind of just watching what's happening. And we're kind of all kind of just like,
cow in the
there was a cow. Yeah, there was a calf that was born out there.
Yeah,
like,
I got a picture, and you can still see like the red umbilical cord coming out of the cow's behind. Dude, and that was a brand new one. It was hopping around like it was stoked to breathing
like,
air.
I'm alive, man. I'm alive.
It was wild.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was super neat.
So, you know, we're just watching it, and we start to see more does as the day is kind of getting later and later, you know, 3:30 in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever. We're starting to see more does.
We had 4 does.
We're starting to watch them, and we're kind of just like, okay, but we're not seeing any bucks still. We hadn't seen any bucks. And there's a hill right behind us that's way closer to us. You know, that one was probably 500 yards. This one was maybe 200 yards and under, but it was like amazing country. And I kept turning around, and I kept glassing back in there, and just kind of like, there has to be deer in there. Like, it's amazing. It's such good country.
Good.
Well, as I was watching, these deer kind of crest this saddle, you know, 400 yards away from me, 500 yards away. I would like, okay, they're moving, and they seem to be moving over saddles. So I would kept turning around to the saddle behind us, and I'm like, I'm just gonna see one like coming over this way, and a buck's gonna be following. So I had the same thing.
We both were doing
freaking
the same
feeling
thing
at different spots with a big tree in between us. So yeah, I was like, I had the same feeling too. Like, it's gonna happen. Something's gonna come over behind us, but nothing ever moved behind us.
No, we could never see anything, and it was a little dense in there, but you know, the good bedding areas, you know, and so we just were glassing, and then I decided to come over to you guys and brought my stuff with me. I brought my bow, and I brought my
tripod
and my binos, and just kind of had everything right there. And we're kind of like all just sitting together, and we're watching these does.
I've been in for the last...
just kind of like hanging out.
Literally, Jason came over to my side of the tree and was like, hey, what are you thinking, man? Like, let's just go hit that whiskey. And I'm like, I'm in, player. I'm in. Let's call it a trip.
Yeah, I was like, do we just kind of ride it out? We didn't have to get back. The kids weren't there. Like, I didn't feel the pressure to get back. We could have stayed out till dark. That was kind of the plan, nice. You know? Like, but we were kind of like, you know, that's kind of the plan. And then... you know, just as kind of like this random thought, and I was kind of bummed I wanted to do it before the trip.
Not here, but she gave me the rattle bag.
Yeah, she gave me gave me a rattle bag, which
so
is kind of
smart.
Like a rattler, like kind of like bucks fighting. It kind of mimics the sound of bucks fighting. We have grunt calls, you know, deer calls, and so we were kind of like, we had them, and I knew it was kind of a play, but didn't really think about it, and kind of didn't really utilize it as much as I would have, or what I thought before. I was like, this is gonna be the ticket, dude. Like, this is gonna be it.
Yeah.
And I didn't really act
on it. After that Javelina call, that was not the ticket.
Yeah. I was like, well,
we were like,
kind of rely
let's
on my
just leave the calls.
Traumatized him.
Yeah,
it did definitely traumatize me. But, you know, then I'm like, kind of like, we're watching these does that are, you know, 300 yards away across this valley.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what if I just bust out the rattle bag and just kind of rattle to see what it does? Like, let's see what happens. And I had like watched enough YouTube to watch whitetail hunting that the rattle like works, and it brings bucks in. They come on like quickly to that sound because they're kind of curious to see what commotion's happening. And so I was like, hey man, do you think I should rattle? And Adrian's like, yeah, fuck it, dude. Like, let's do it. What do we have to lose? It's, you know, it's like it's 4:30 in the afternoon. We have probably an hour left, you know, whatever.
We basically just wanted to get a reaction out of the does.
Yeah.
One of them bedded, 3 of them were still feeding, and it's like,
what are they do if we do this?
Let's see what the does react to a rattle and a grunt. You know, that's kind of that
was exactly
what
we were thinking. Yeah. And so I start just rattle. it's got their attention, right? It's all happening. And I think Anna had gone to the restroom right before, and it was like, well, wait, let's wait till she can like pick them back up, and then like wait so she can see, so we can all kind of like talk to each other and see what happens. And so she sits back down, gets set up, and we start rattling, and like it got their attention. Like they were paying attention. Like they were rattling. You kind of start to do some grunt calls. And we're kind of like, oh, cool. We're like watching the does.
And then you're like, okay, let's just chill out.
You were kind of like still grunting. I was like, hey, chill, dude.
Sending it.
I was like, chill, dude. Like, I'm like, just chill, hold on. And then like 5 seconds later, maybe, all of a sudden we like, you and I both turned around at like the same time, and there's a forky buck 20 yards from us.
Yep.
And he came to see what the hell was going on. Like he was bedded in that area right behind us.
On a rope.
Looked amazing.
On a rope.
He came on a string.
Straight up.
So quick to see what the heck was going on. And it happened so fast. I mean, I'm just lucky. I had my bow right there. Right. And so I didn't even, as soon as we both turned around and you were like, there's a buck.
I'm whispering because, I mean, it's right there. 20 yards is not far. So I'm like, oh my God, Jason, grab your bow. There's a buck. There's a buck behind us. I can't see you because you're behind me. And all of a sudden, you have your bow in your hand already. Like it was like a part of you. You like Spider-Man that shit to your hand. And then you're like, do you still see him? And it had, from the first spot I saw him, it had moved about 5 steps and stopped again and looked at us. And then it moved like down and out of sight. So I was like, get your bow, like you might still have a shot. Yeah. So we creep up over to this like yucca, and I could still see his head, and he is so like conflicted between his DNA telling him there's other action up here that are bucks versus what he saw. And likewise for us, my brain couldn't comprehend what my eyes was telling it, that there's a deer 20 yards away from us and it just took off. So I start to creep up like behind this yucca, and then I peek out to the right. I get a range, but I'm getting hit by other yuccas in between us. So my first range said 15, and I was like, put your 20 on it. And then you're like, that's not 20 yards?
And because I've shot at 20 yards, I've shot at 30 yards, I've shot so many different shots that I was like, that's not 20 yards.
Yeah,
I could tell that was not 20 yards.
Thank God you didn't listen.
So I'm like, that's not 20 yards. But we were standing like side by side, right? Like we were so close together.
Actually, in hindsight, if you did shoot 20, you still would have got it.
Oh, for sure, dude. So like that's kind of a little foreshadowing. But like, we walk up. It happened so fast. We saw it. I just reacted.
You're like, give me a range.
And I was like, because you were there, I was like, well, I'm not going to wrestle with my range.
No.
I'm gonna,
but wasn't it your binoculars under your jacket?
Yeah, I had like a jacket zipped up, and so I needed to I could have gotten into it, and I was actually starting to reach for it because I was like, do I trust you to kind of do it, or do it myself?
How good of a friend are you?
Do I trust you?
It's 60. It's at 60.
You have your bow. I haven't got one either.
Yeah. Send it.
But, it happened amazingly fast, and it was just this crazy thing that we decided to do, and it kind of brought the deer right in, like I'd seen on YouTube, right?
So the deer is at 30 at this point. The deer's at 30. Yes. I get a solid range, not shaking anymore, and I get a solid range. I'm like, it's 30, Jay. Put your 30 pin on him.
I drew back.
Quartering away hard.
Yeah, quartering away pretty hard, pretty heavy. Kind of drew back. The shot I had taken a million different times. Put my 30 pin exactly, right where I needed to put it, and just kind of let it fly. And dude, when Captain Bly, shout out to Captain Bly, he's told me, he kind of the one that turned us on to this area, whitetail hunting in general. He told me that the biggest Coues buck that he's ever killed was at 42 yards, and the thing did a complete 180 from when he released his arrow to when the arrow hit it. And so I just kind of was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, but then didn't really understand it. This deer at 30 yards, quartering away super hard, flinched so hard that it ducked. It was ducking the string, and my arrow hit it like directly in the neck, spined it. The thing dropped.
Like directly in the back of the neck and hit its spine.
It actually ended up, in hindsight, it was, that's what I meant to do. So it was like a 1 in a million shot. Like
easy track job.
Yeah, 1 in a million shot.
It dropped it in its track, basically instant kill. Yeah. It was done right then and there.
Shout out to Anna. I was not around. She took up the camera woman duty, and there is a video of you guys at that spot at the ridge line, and when I wasn't there, so it's cool for me to see this video, because when Jason releases, and it again 30 yards is not far, it's like instantaneous, you're both like, oh my god, just your reaction. It's not that you hit it, but you dropped it.
It dropped in its tracks. And I mean, I think about it like this is kind of inside baseball, kind of talking about archery and arrows and stuff. My arrow flies about 280 feet per second. That thing was standing 90 feet away. So that arrow was there in a split second, and that thing was ducking the string already. It was super turned on to what happened, but it dropped it in its tracks. We walked up. I mean, it was done, and I mean, we kind of rolled our sleeves up, cleaned the thing up. No meat was not destroyed at all.
No,
and it was amazing.
I will say,
an amazing thing. Dude.
You know, I was on my drive home. I needed to be home for the next morning, and I'm getting a FaceTime call. We just are getting back into the truck. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a FaceTime call.
You knew.
Either something was very wrong or something was very right. And the first image, I grabbed Jeremy, and the first image I see is a Jason holding this buck, and I'm like, oh my God. And so I took the liberty and got both boys and myself a screenshot of our FaceTime call. You're very fuzzy, but it's you know, a couple of Jeremy, a couple of Austin, and one of me, and with Jason and the steer, and it's very cool. Like, I couldn't be there, but I couldn't have been more stoked to see you guys, because it's like, again, it all came together, and I actually thought
I got the chills right now.
But I actually felt better about leaving to go do something, you know, really difficult. And that you guys had done it, so it gives me chills, and I was so stoked.
Yeah, it was.
Those blurry pictures are very powerful.
Yeah, no, it was crazy, and such a crazy experience, and a crazy thing that happened last hour, last day, you know, last minute, you know, just kind of Hail Mary that kind of came together.
Hiking out in the dark with headlamps.
Yeah, we ended up packing out in the dark, and you know, it was such a crazy experience, and I can't thank all of you guys enough. Again, I was kind of the lucky one to get to pull the trigger again, and you know, so you feel super fortunate for that, fortunate to have a supportive team around me, and you guys are kind of like, you know, it's become this kind of tradition, and it's been super fun, and you know, like the camaraderie that comes with hunting and fishing and all these different things is kind of something we kind of try to capture in these stories. And it's hard to explain, because like when you're in that moment, and you know, there's a picture of us, you know, kind of like locking up, you know, and like,
buzzing Woody,
you know, but like we were kind of just like, it was crazy, and it just happened so fast. And it just was this crazy moment. But you know, a lot of work, a lot of effort from all of us went into that moment, right? Like, I mean, I've talked about it ad nauseum of all the things that I do for preparation, but you know, again, like everybody else is taking time out of their schedules, everybody else is taking time away from everything else they're doing to be out there and support this cause, and so it's a total team effort. I never thought of hunting as a team sport. I'm a team sport person, and that's what it's become, and that's why it's so amazing. And I can't thank you guys enough, and it's super cool. And I mean, you know, it just was awesome, dude.
Well, that's
you filled both of your tags in Arizona this year, huh?
Yeah. I mean, you know, we filled
3 out of 4.
3 out of 4 tags.
Well, but also, how does it feel, Tarasis, to be tagged out?
Tagged out this year.
You guys tagged out. Yeah. I just don't know what that feels like.
Tagged out Tarasis.
It's gonna be hard.
Super fortunate.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to top this year. I mean, elk.
Well, I still got my buck tag is still good for August and December.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get back out there with you, man, and make it happen, dude. We got to kind of make some plans, and you know, I can't wait. I mean, that's kind of the first. I think I posted something, you know, with that deer.
Stay off my spots.
I said, stay off my spots, Coues. Yeah, we were like, hey, like, you know, I said that's just the start, man. I feel like we're still so young in this game, but I love it, and it's so addictive and so fun, and you know, testament to all the work is like actually getting success, and I feel like, you know, yes, we've had people support us along the way, but for really, it's just been DIY through and through, dude. Like, our own spots, our own thing, like we're figuring it out ourselves. We weren't born and raised in this thing, dude. We started late, dude. I didn't start even thinking about hunting until I was like 35, dude. So totally. Like the fact that we're making it happen, and we're not having people like guide us and make it happen, we're doing it ourselves, is pretty crazy. And to drop a Coues buck, 3rd year out there.
Yeah, 3rd year hunting him.
Not just a spike. You got a little.
No, it's you know, he's a little guy, but it's cool, dude. I'm proud of it, man.
You're good.
I'm proud of it, dude. I mean, it's an amazing thing, and I think it's something to be
Jay,
proud of.
it's just like Captain Blythe said, any Coues buck taken with a bow, you're a stud. Yeah, so, hey,
some people
you know,
don't even want to hunt them.
And what did Captain Blythe say? He said, it. You know, after all the experience, it's going to happen on your 3rd year.
Yeah. No, it's quite an accomplishment. But again, I can't thank you guys enough for
buddy.
Team effort.
Cheers.
Cheers to you guys. Cheers. Team tournament.
And we did, and we got it done.
Yep. We're we got a meal coming up today that we're going to cook up, and we'll put some more stuff on Instagram. We'll try to maybe put a video together. We'll see if we can kind of piece something together. We forgot the camera, so we'll see if we can put it out. But we'll piece it together. But, you know, more to come, and we're trying to kind of double down on some of this stuff and sharing our stories.
Yeah, and we hope you guys love the stories of our latest trip. You know, we just try to relive it as it happened. Giving you all the real stuff that happened, the good, the bad.
Jason's celebrating over here.
He's throwing stuff. The good, the bad, the ugly, and we just try to give it to you as we experienced it. The main thing of this podcast is to kind of let you guys know that it's attainable for you if you want to get it done. And we are a resource that you can hit us up. Please hit us up and ask us questions. If you want to get out there, we're not going to give you the spots, but we will tell you where to look and what faces and what, you know, north side, south side, west side, east side kind of stuff to look for. We might give you the right direction, but, you know, not the exact spot. You know, that's kind of how we learned. So it's doable for you to do the same thing. Please interact with us and ask us questions if you have some more questions about it.
Yeah, Free Range Tales. You can check us out on YouTube, Instagram. We have our website too, freerangetales.com. So check all that stuff out. We're trying to put more content up there, putting blogs up, recipes. So yeah, check us out. Appreciate you guys tuning in, checking it out.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for your day today. Let's get into partying because it's Saturday.
Thanks to our new actual, I guess, employees now.
Yeah. Got them on payroll now.
Yeah.
Let's do it. No, but thank you guys.
Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Let's do it.
Let's do another one.
Can't wait for the next.
Yep.
Cheers.
Peace.